Chapter 209. Mephistopheles said anxiously, "Miss, we can't let him leave, otherwise." He knew how terrifying Chiyu was. Although he had regained his life, he was obviously very weak. If they didn't take this opportunity to destroy him, it would be a terrible thing to face such a powerful enemy in the future. Moreover, Chiyu had already issued a challenge to the Constellation Guardians. Yumao gently shook her head. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She raised her right hand and used her sleeve to wipe away the tears on her face. At the same time, her white and charming face lost all of its emotions, and the sacred aura became stronger. Her eyes flashed, and she looked at Chiyu deeply and said, "All right, on the 10th of January next year, we will definitely be there. Goodbye, Mr. Chi." After saying this, she turned around and walked away without looking back. Chiyu. Yuyun wanted to say something, but when the words were at the tip of her tongue, she swallowed them in the end. She looked at Chiyu and sighed. At the same time, she shook her head and followed behind Yumu. Mephistopheles hesitated for a moment, whether to attack Chiyu or not. Even if he disobeyed Yumu's order, he would still destroy him here. However, he condensed his energy several times, and in the end, he didn't make a move. In fact, how could he not sympathize with Chiyu's experience? For the sake of the Greek guardian to become stronger, they had deeply hurt the other party who should have been their ally. He shook his head helplessly, and left with the Constellation Guardians behind Yumu and her sister. Chiyu was still watching them, until they disappeared from his sight. He raised his hand and hugged the tearful snow girl into his arms. Gently stroking her ice-blue hair, he said, "Everything that I've suffered today, I'll definitely pay them back in double in the near future. Snow girl, Daddy won't say anything else. Let's go home, Daddy. Your biological father also died for me. I will replace him, and protect you for the rest of your life. I swear on Kiran's life that from now on, I will never let you get hurt again." Snow girl hugged Chiyu's shoulder. She burst into tears. Chiyu didn't say anything else. The reddish-gold wings on his back flapped, and he soared into the sky with Snow girl, flying into the distance. He didn't take a plane again. Instead, he took Snow girl with him. Relying on his flying ability, he flew towards the east. Right now, what he needed was silence. He needed to calm himself down and think clearly about everything that had happened today. Flying in the air, Chiyu released the energy in his body. No country's radar could detect his presence. At the same time, he kept Snow girl, who was weary from crying, into his Kiran pearl. At this moment, his heart was abnormally calm. As the saying goes, there's nothing more sorrowful than a dead heart. If he really died, he wouldn't feel as much pain as he did now. Yumu's betrayal filled his heart with a deathly stillness. He knew that he was too naive when it came to love. Perhaps it was because he had never been hurt in love before, so he fell into Yumu's trap this time. At this moment, he couldn't help but think of everything that had happened after when Ting protected him. At that time, the breath of life in his body was awakened by the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King, and his body had regained all kinds of functions. But at that time, Chiyu was more afraid than when he was about to die, because when Ting's life had begun to flow into his body, the woman he loved the most had sacrificed her life for him. Even if he didn't die, what kind of blow would he have to bear? When Ting was the woman Chiyu loved deeply. Until that moment, Chiyu suddenly felt that he owed so much to the woman who loved him deeply. First there was Ming Ming, then there was Ryue, and then there was one Ting. But what about him? Did he bear the responsibility that a man should bear? Was he worthy of the love of so many women? Chiyu's heart was very painful. When Ting transformed into a giant beast, completely burning her body in the huge true fire, completely turning her body into a body of energy and fusing with Chiyu. At that time, not only did Chiyu obtain a huge amount of energy, but he also obtained Wen Ting's emotions. Wen Ting didn't blame him in the slightest. Instead, she used incomparably gentle emotions to gently comfort his wounded heart. Whether it was anger, hatred, or any other negative emotions, they were gradually soothed by Wenting's most gentle emotional comfort. That was why his heart could calm down. The energy, like Wenting's, was not directly absorbed by his body. Instead, it condensed into a ruby in his dantian, quietly floating in his dantian. At that time, although Chi Yu's life force had recovered, because of his previous exhaustion, his body could no longer withstand such a huge amount of energy. As long as there was this energy that could support his life, it was enough. He needed to wait until the energy of the source of nature was strong again, then he could change his body. Only then could he gradually absorb the energy brought by Wenting and turn it into his own energy. Yumuyun, these two names were deeply imprinted in Chi Yu's mind. At this moment, he had finally become a real mature man. His mentality had undergone a complete change compared to before. The ruffian look on his face had disappeared along with the deathly stillness of his body. His calm face seemed to have a somewhat serious aura. At the same time, many things had increased and decreased in the depths of his heart. After flying continuously for a full 3 days, Chi Yu flew from London all the way back to the capital of the Yenhuang Republic, the capital city. As he floated down, his aura had become much better. In these 3 days, his body had condensed a fifth of the natural energy that was equivalent to his peak state, and the thundercloud force had also recovered about 30% along with his body's recovery. The draconic field courtyard was still as beautiful as ever. In the courtyard full of plants, Yan Xiaoi, Hu Guang, Ian, and Vol were practicing their combat skills. "Damn, Lil E, you're too despicable. How dare you sneak attack me in a sparring match?" Vol said angrily as he glared at Yan Xiaoi. Zagru was stunned for a moment. He had never felt that Chi Yu valued the pursuit of power so much. He walked to Chi Yu's side and held his left hand. His index finger, middle finger, and thumb pinched the Sarira bead on Chi Yu's wrist. A faint Buddhist aura was transmitted from his palm into Chi Yu's body. Under the stimulation of the Buddhist aura, the Sarira bead emitted a layer of gentle light and transmitted into Chi Yu's body. The Buddhist aura circulated from his wrist to every corner of Chi Yu's body. Chi Yu subconsciously closed his eyes and felt the Buddhist energy circulating within his body. His exhausted body immediately felt much more comfortable, especially the Buddhist energy's comforting effect on his mind. It greatly calmed the turbulent emotions in his heart over the past few days. After a long time, Zagru chanted and released Chi Yu's hand. "Your body's condition is very bad. Fortunately, the aura of the origin of nature is still operating automatically, but your own thundercloud force is greatly restricted. Have you noticed this problem?" Chi Yu nodded. "That's true. My current thundercloud force is only about 1/3 of its best state. When I was in the West, my strength once broke through to the 7-cloud level, but because of the influence of my physical condition, it has now fallen back to the 6-cloud level. Even I don't know why." Zagru said, "Since you have the energy of the origin of nature, the 4 thundercloud force in your body can coordinate with each other. As long as your overall strength reaches a certain level, it will naturally be promoted to the next level. You don't need to cultivate 1 thundercloud force at a time like before. But now your situation is obviously different. The 4 thundercloud force are not balanced at all, which is also the reason why your strength has declined. I can feel a special energy in your body through the Buddhist aura. It's full of evil feeling. Although it's not very strong, it is deeply entrenched in your heart. Even my Buddhist aura can't remove it. Although this evil aura won't affect your strength, it has a strong interference to your mind. Tell me, what did you encounter in the West this time? I think the disappearance of Wenting and Snow Girl should be related to you." Chi Yu nodded his head and said, "Great Master, once everyone has arrived, I will tell them everything that has happened. Now, can you tell me how to improve my overall strength, or to improve the overall strength of our Zodiac Guardian warriors?" Zagru thought for a while and said, There are two ways to improve the overall strength of the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. One is to greatly improve the strength of each Zodiac Guardian Warrior. The other is to make the Zodiac Guardian Warriors truly become a whole under your guidance. Now that the 12 Zodiac Guardian Warriors have truly become a whole, they can exert greater strength. Now that the 12 Zodiac Guardian Warriors are Chi-Yu, it's time to impart your fusion skill to you. You should remember what I told you before. When all the Zodiac Guardian Warriors appear, Kirin's support ability will be revealed. You are the core of all the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. Only under your leadership can the Zodiac Guardian Warriors exert the most powerful attack power, right? Chi-Yu nodded and said, "You told me this before. Then, are you referring to an ability similar to a domain with me as the core?" Zagru looked at Chi-Yu in surprise and said, "How do you know?" "That is indeed the case," Chi-Yu said indifferently, "because I have seen this ability on Athena and her 12 Zodiac Guardians. Athena's ability is called the Signs of the Zodiac Domain. Since the West has this ability, there is no reason why the East doesn't have it. However, there is a problem. The strength of the Zodiac Guardians is not that different. Although their abilities are different, their overall strength is very balanced. However, our Zodiac Guardian Warriors are not like this. The weakest one might not even be able to fight to the death. The strongest one, Ryue, is already at the 7-cloud level. With such a difference, can our domain really exert its power?" Zagru smiled mysteriously and said, "Since the day the Zodiac Guardian Warriors appeared, our ancestors have been constantly perfecting the Zodiac Guardian Warrior system. What you said is not a problem. Wait until I tell you how to use the full power of the Zodiac Guardian Warriors, then you will understand." The faint light gradually became stronger. A soft white light enveloped Chi-Yu and Zagru. His lips moved. Zagru began to explain something to Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu listened attentively. At the same time, his expression was very serious. Relying on his spiritual force that was far stronger than ordinary people, he clearly imprinted every word that Grandmaster Zagru said into his mind. A faint light flickered. Chi-Yu's eyes revealed a trace of light. As Zagru became more familiar with him, the light in his eyes became brighter and brighter. "This is my last mission as this generation's Sky-Een. I have already taught you everything I know. From now on, you must bear the responsibility that a Kirin should bear. That year, when I became a Sky-Een, I never thought that this generation's Kirin would be so strong. In such a short time, your strength has even increased to the 7-cloud level. Even if the other Zodiac Guardian Warriors join forces, they may not be able to hurt you. I think that in the battle methods of the Zodiac Guardian Warriors passed down from ancient times, there should be some changes. Combined with your powerful strength, you should be able to produce some changes. As the strongest amongst the Zodiac Guardian Warriors, you might be able to turn from a pure support ability to the strongest point. As for how to help, you can only rely on yourself to discover it. Chi-Yu, Grandmaster, I am a little lost in cultivation. Although my foundation is Kirin's thundercloud force, since I obtained the origin of nature, I found that its effect is even stronger than my Kirin's thundercloud force. In the past, my main attack ability was Kirin's arm and some Kirin skills. However, after obtaining the origin of nature, I can freely transform these thundercloud force. Coupled with the tyrannical attack power of the Xianyuan sword, my Kirin skills have become useless. Only the 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper realm can be of some use. So, if this continues, will I be a real Kirin? Should I simply give up on the use of Kirin's skills and focus on the use of the Xianyuan sword? Zagru looked at Chi-Yu, and after pondering for a while, he said sternly, "Chi-Yu, you can't do that." Listening to Zagru's affirmative tone, Chi-Yu's expression changed slightly. "Why?" Zagreus said, "The reason is very simple. It's because you aren't an ordinary Qilin warrior, and you've even been to the era of the ancient beast. I'm afraid that you haven't seen a single 4 auspicious cloud Qilin there. Although your current strength is not weak, you have not practiced Kirin's thundercloud force to its peak. How do you know that Kirin's ability is useless to you? Moreover, don't forget that you are Kirin of the 4 auspicious clouds. The first 4 auspicious clouds in Kirin in history. How do you know what kind of changes will occur when your strength reaches its peak? Therefore, I believe that Kirin's skills must not be given up. Qiyu thought for a while and said, "The soul of the Xianyuan sword in the Xianyuan sword once told me that in my current situation, even if I cultivate to the strongest level of the 9 clouds, I am afraid that I can only use the 3rd sword of the 8 swords of the Xianyuan sword. If that's the case, then the Qilin strength is far inferior to the Xianyuan sword, a divine weapon of this level. What I need to do is to improve my energy to a higher level." The scene of the soul of the Xianyuan sword using the power of the origin to activate the god-punishing formation was deeply imprinted in his mind. That moment of destruction had already been imprinted in his mind. To him, this was too shocking. If he could freely use the god execution array, even if those archangels descended to the human world, he wouldn't have to be afraid of anything. Compared to the god executioner formation, his Kirin strength was far too inferior. They weren't even on the same level. Zagru shook his head and said, "No, Qiyu, you are wrong. Actually, this cannot be blamed on you. After all, the Xianyuan mystical sword is one of the strongest immortal treasures in the history of Yan Huang. Its might is absolutely terrifying. Once you touch it and use its formidable power, you will definitely be able to escape." It was inevitable that he would have doubts about his own strength. However, your way of thinking is wrong. First of all, Xuanyuan's soul is the soul of Xuanyuan's sword. Its estimation of your strength is based on your strength and situation at the time, as well as your understanding of the Kirin clan. However, you are not an ordinary Kirin. You are the 4 lucky clouds in Kirin. In the memories of the soul of the Xianyuan sword, there will be no record of your true strength when you reach your peak. Although the black sword is strong, it is ultimately an immortal treasure and not you. If you pursue too much integration with it or use it, then you will naturally neglect your own cultivation. In such a situation, you will definitely not be able to tap into your own potential. You can be said to be born out of necessity. If my guess is right, there will definitely be some changes in the future with you, the 4 lucky clouds in Kirin. Moreover, in the last few clouds, the increase in strength of each cloud is not as simple as it seems on the surface. Although you only need to increase your overall strength to bring your own strength to a new level after reaching the 7th cloud, is the increase in your strength as high as I told you before? Although the effect of integrating with the origin of nature is great, to a certain extent, it has affected the improvement of your own thundercloud force. Think about it carefully, and it means that there is a problem in your cultivation. Before you truly reach the peak of Kirin's realm, I don't recommend you to give up the research of Kirin's strength. On the other hand, if you put all your energy into the research of Kirin's thundercloud force, it will definitely have a positive effect on your use of the Xianyuan sword in the future. Just now, you said that if you want to increase your absolute strength, what better way is there than through the cultivation of Kirin's thundercloud force? At your current level, it would be extremely difficult for you to use other methods to increase your strength. There is a shortcut, but you don't want to take it. Do you want to take a detour? After listening to Zagru's words, Qiyu suddenly felt enlightened, and the path in front of him seemed to have completely lit up. Yes, when he felt that his strength had risen to the 7-cloud realm, although his strength had increased greatly, now that he thought about it, it seemed to have only increased by 1/5 times of the original 6-cloud realm. One must know that the difference between the 7-cloud realm and the 6-cloud realm was magnificent compared to the difference between the 5-cloud realm and the 7-cloud realm. The 7-cloud realm could be said to be a watershed in the cultivation of all the Zodiac guardian warriors, especially for Kirin. Since this was the case, had he really reached the 7-cloud realm? Indeed, as Master Zagru said, Although the origin of nature had brought him great benefits, it seemed to have deceived some things. For auspicious clouds, did the 4 auspicious clouds really bring him 4 types of abilities? No, it couldn't be that simple. Thinking until here, Chi-Yu nodded and said, "Master, thank you. Although I haven't figured out what the problem is, I think as long as I continue to cultivate, I should be able to figure out the relationship between them. It's not a short time, let's go out, there are some things that I have to let everyone know." Zagru nodded and patted Chi-Yu's shoulder, saying, "I'm not going, I have taught you what I should. It has been a long time since I left the temple, it's time for me to go back." Chi-Yu's face changed. "Master, are you leaving?" Zagru nodded and said, "Yes, it's time for me to go back, Chi-Yu, you can't rely on me for everything. You are the real king of the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. Moreover, I am no longer of any help to the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. After all, the secular world is not suitable for a monk like me. If you need me in the future, you can come to St. Buddha Temple to find me." Chi-Yu was silent for a while. He didn't say anything more, stood up and walked out of the room. Chapter 210. At this time, all the Zodiac Guardian Warriors had gathered in the hall of the Villa of Dragonfield Courtyard, except for Ming Ming. Ryue was anxiously waiting in the middle of the hall. When she heard Vol and the others say that Chi-Yu's expression was not right, her heart was filled with uneasiness. Ever since she became Chi-Yu's woman, this man had become the most important person in her heart. Moreover, Vol and the others' speculation was somewhat credible. Based on Chi-Yu's character, perhaps only Ming Ming and Wen Ting could have such great feelings for him. The sound of the door opening made Ryue nervous. The Zodiac Guardian Warriors present were not weak. Naturally, they could feel that Chi-Yu had walked out of Master Zagru's room. They immediately stopped talking and looked at the stairs on the right. Chi-Yu calmly walked down the stairs. Looking at her, Ryue's eyes couldn't help but move slightly. As Chi-Yu's woman, she undoubtedly felt the change in Chi-Yu's aura the most. Chi-Yu's skin seemed to emit a layer of reddish-golden luster. Although he had returned to the villa, the reddish-golden wings on his back were retracted, but not returned to his body. Even his hair was reddish-golden. His expression was calm and a little scary. In his eyes, Ryue could see deep exhaustion. Spreading the wings on his back, Chi-Yu directly jumped down from the second floor. Master Zagru didn't follow him out. In the hall, Chi-Yu just happened to be standing beside Ryue. Ryue's eyes revealed a questioning look. Although she finally saw the man that she had missed for months, she felt even more uneasy. Chi-Yu stepped forward and naturally held Ryue's hand. Ryue was surprised. Chi-Yu's hand was very cold, even a little like ice. Her expression couldn't help but change slightly. "Chi-Yu, what's wrong?" Gently shaking his head, Chi-Yu took a deep breath and slowly retracted the wings on his back into his body. The reddish-golden luster on his skin also gradually dissipated. Because of the reddish-golden wings on his back, the clothes on his back revealed 2 receivers. It looked a little strange. When Chi-Yu's wings and the reddish-golden luster on his body completely disappeared, the expressions of everyone present couldn't help but change. Because they saw Chi-Yu's long white hair. Although Chi-Yu's life had been saved, and his body's functions were gradually recovering under the effect of the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King's origin of nature. However, his originally pitch-black long hair had disappeared forever. His white hair made Chi-Yu's aura seem a lot more bleak. This was not only caused by his weak body. In the 3 days that he had flown back, Chi-Yu's heart had always been in an incomparably complicated mood. The so-called white hair overnight, because of the changes in his body and emotions, caused his hair to become like this. Everyone present could clearly feel that after losing the reddish-golden luster, Chi-Yu was actually so weak. His face was almost gray, and there was no luster in his eyes. Coupled with the white hair, he, who was originally only 20 years old, now looked at least 30 years old. His skin was very dry, and his body was also very weak, as if he could collapse at any time. Ryue sucked in a breath of cold air. Holding Chi-Yu's hand, she hurriedly transferred her pure thundercloud force into Chi-Yu's body without reservation. However, as soon as her thundercloud force entered Chi-Yu's body, it was blocked by Chi-Yu's own energy. Chi-Yu turned his head to look at her, and gently shook his head. At this time, all the Zodiac Guardian warriors were looking at him. Even the somewhat eccentric Mo Dan and the last Zodiac Guardian warrior, Guan Jing, were looking at Chi-Yu with a surprised expression. Mo Dan's body was still as magnificent as before, but his aura seemed to have become more domineering. On the other hand, Guan Jing looked a lot calmer. His own energy fluctuation was very different from his original rotten body. Obviously, he had obtained a lot of benefits from his cultivation. Everyone wants to know why I became like this, Chi-Yu said lightly. Vol couldn't help but ask, Boss Yu, what happened to you? Where's Sister Ming Ming? Also, when Ting and Snow Girl disappeared, did they go to find you? Chi-Yu looked at Vol and didn't directly answer his question. It caused me to become like this, it's all because of my own stupidity. I've made everyone worry. Ming Ming is in my Kirin Pearl. She was seriously injured, and I'm afraid it will be difficult for her to recover in a short time. Snow Girl was too sad, so I let her sleep in my Kirin Pearl for a while. As for one Ting. At this point, Chi-Yu's eyes revealed a trace of deep sorrow. The deathly stillness caused a layer of grayish-white luster to appear in his eyes. This was the aura of death that Vol had sensed earlier, and it was also an energy fluctuation that came from his heart. Although Chi-Yu stopped Ryue's energy input, she still held Chi-Yu's hand tightly. Chi-Yu's pause in his words made her understand a lot. Yan Xiaoi said involuntarily, Boss, did one Ting. Chi-Yu took a deep breath and barely calmed his aura of death. Yes, in order to save me, she died. At the same time, this time in the West, I also implicated many people, including many masters of the Dracula family, the Vampire Prince, my friend Klinsman, and Snow Girl's father Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King. After listening to Chi-Yu's words, all the Zodiac Guardian warriors quieted down. Mo Dan, Guan Jing, and Hummer, who did not know him very well, did not feel much. However, people like Ryue, Vol, and those who were very close to Chi-Yu clearly understood how big a blow the death of these people was to Chi-Yu. Ryue finally could not help but speak. She had always been strong, but at this time, her voice was a little trembling. Chi-Yu, what happened? Wen Ting, how could she, what happened to you? Chi-Yu's gray eyes trembled for a moment. Because I was too stupid. Xinyun was right, I am a fool, the most stupid fool in the world. It's all because of me that I implicated them, that they died because of me. Mo Dan looked at Chi-Yu, frowned, and said, Yao Qi, can't you speak clearly? Why are you hemming and hawing, are you a man or not? If all men are like this when they encounter a blow, I would rather never marry. If it was any other time, Mo Dan's words would definitely be ridiculed by others, but now, no one was in the mood to ridicule her. Everyone felt as if there was a big stone pressing on their hearts, and they looked at Chi-Yu, waiting for him to explain. Modi pulled Mo Dan and said softly, Dan, don't talk nonsense. Chi-Yu looked at Mo Dan, but he did not get angry. Yes, I can't even protect my own woman, and let her die because of me. I'm really not a man. You're right, I don't want to talk about what happened in the West. Today, I gathered everyone here to tell you that in the near future, we will definitely face a strong enemy. It's an enemy that we can't predict, so all the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors have to start a special training. My heart is in a mess now, and Ming Ming needs time to recover. I'll give everyone a week to adjust to everything. After that, there won't be time for everyone to do anything else. In other words, we need to break away from the real world and put all our spiritual energy into training. Mo Dan protested, Are you kidding me? Why are you the one who suffered the shock, but you want us to be implicated? I don't agree. Although I promised my sister to accept the identity of the Zodiac Guardian God, it doesn't mean that I don't want to listen to you. Chi Yu looked at Emodan, nodded lightly, and said, Fine, it's up to you. You don't need to participate. Who else? It's not too late to say it now. After a week, there won't be any chance to regret it. After the group training begins, no one can withdraw. Feeling Chi Yu's calmness and looking at his eyes that were full of death, Emodan, who was always fearless, felt a little afraid. She lowered her head, not daring to look at Chi Yu, but she did not take back her words. Vol said, Boss, I support you. Su Dong said with a straight face, even someone as strong as Boss was injured. It shows how powerful our future enemies are. I also support this group training. Sweat more in normal times, and when we meet real enemies, we'll bleed less. The other Zodiac Guardian God warriors nodded. Only the horse warrior Mao Jie and the pig warrior Guan Jing protected their silence. Chi Yu's gaze fell on the two, and Mao Jie said, Of course it's a good thing to train together, I'm very willing to participate. But I'm Xiao Lu's manager, and she still has a lot of things for me to deal with. I'm afraid I can't spare that much time. When will you organize the training? Chi Yu said, At least until the end of this year. We are going to a special place to train, and we can't come back in the middle of it. Mao Jie frowned and said, That's a little difficult. Although Xiao Lu hasn't performed recently, she has already started preparing for her next album. It will be released next year, and she is still in the process of looking for inspiration. Chi Yu thought for a moment and said, The place where we train is probably the best place to find inspiration. You can bring her along. Changjie hesitated and said, I'm afraid that won't work. Xiao Lu is preparing to go to the subtropics, and she needs to find inspiration in a very natural environment. Maybe you don't know, but many of her singles are produced by herself. In the music industry, Xiao Lu can be said to be a once-in-a-century genius. Chi Yu said, If that's the case, I'm almost sure that she will be very willing to go to that place. I will find someone to protect her, how about that? Seeing that Changjie was still a little hesitant, he continued, How about this, we go there first, and if she doesn't like half of it, I can send you all back. But I have to make one thing clear, as long as the training starts, I will not allow anyone to quit, and you can't quit either. Changjie looked at Chi Yu's head full of white hair, and for some reason, his heart trembled. He nodded and said, Okay, since you said so, I have no reason to refuse you. There was a faint cold light in his eyes, and Chi Yu's gaze fell on Guan Jing. What about you? Why are you not willing to go? Guan Jing looked at Chi Yu, and she twirled her fingers and said, I don't really care, but you know why I joined you, and it depends on how much you are willing to pay. If you can satisfy me, I can consider it. He didn't care about the other people's contemptuous eyes, and looked at Chi Yu's provocative eyes. Chi Yu nodded and said, Okay, I promise you. If you are willing to go, I will give you 200 yen won coins as salary every day, how about that? Guan Jing's eyes lit up. 200 yen won coins? If that's the case, you can get 6,000 a month, it seems that I can consider it. Chi Yu faintly said, 300 yen won coins, if you are not willing, then forget it. Guan Jing almost reflexively said, Deal. Chi Yu said, In that case, everyone can go deal with their own things. Mo Dan was the first to turn around and leave, followed by an excited Guan Jing, who also went back to her room, as if planning how to spend her 300 yen won daily salary in the future. The rest of the Zodiac warriors didn't have any intention of leaving. Except for Changjie, they had known Chi Yu for a long time, especially Su Dong, Vol, and the others, who had been with Chi Yu since he became Kirin. Out of concern for a friend, they all wanted to know what happened to Chi Yu to make him become like this. Chi Yu's eyes revealed a faint light. Everyone, you can leave now. I'm sorry, I really don't want to say it now, but I can guarantee that you will find out sooner or later. Ryuan nodded to everyone and said, Let him have some peace. Su Dong walked to Chi Yu's side and patted his shoulder. No matter what, we will always be by your side to support you. Although Mo Dan's temper is a little strange, it's not difficult to persuade her. I know you are doing this for everyone's sake. Chi-yu nodded and said, then I'll leave it to you. Master will leave here tomorrow, you can go and say goodbye to him. I may not appear in the next few days, I need to help Ming Ming and the others heal, so I won't be seeing Master off. Vol's expression suddenly changed, and he didn't say anything, he just chased after the direction Mo Dan left. Everyone knew that Mo Dan had that kind of feelings for him, but his heart was with Modi. At this time, he chased after the direction Mo Dan left without looking back. Needless to say, everyone knew what he was going to do. In order to let Mo Dan participate in Chi-yu's group training, he was actually willing to sacrifice his own body to a certain extent. Such brotherly love, and everyone's concerned gazes, all warmed Chi-yu's cold heart a lot. Feeling Wen-Ting's energy aura in his body, he took a deep breath, and turned to Ryue, who was beside him, and said, I want to go out for a walk, will you accompany me? Ryue said gently, no matter where you go, I will always be by your side. Chi-yu tightly held Ryue's slender jade hand, as if he was afraid that he would suddenly lose her. His eyes revealed a touch of gentleness, and he said, then let's go. Under the gazes of the Zodiac guardian warriors, Chi-yu and Ryue left the villa. Chi-yu didn't drive. He sat in the front passenger seat, while Ryue drove her Lamborghini sports car out of Dragonfield Courtyard. Sitting in the front passenger seat, Chi-ho closed his eyes, his left hand tightly holding Ryue's left hand. Except for the moment when he got in the car, his hand had always maintained this posture, as if he was afraid that Ryue would also leave him. Only by holding that wet jade hand, Chi-yu's heart felt a little better, and the pain caused by Wen-Ting's death also eased a little. Where are we going? Ryue looked at Chi-yu with a distressed expression. Chi-yu's hair was a little messy, and he looked as if he was seriously ill. His pale white hair looked so shocking, and he was only 20 years old. Ryue held back her tears. She knew that Chi-yu needed her care and comfort now. She was very clear that his feelings for Wen-Ting were no less than hers, and Wen-Ting's death was a huge blow to him. Moreover, Snow Girl's father and kinsmen had also lost their lives because of him. Although Chi-yu didn't tell her the process, Ryue could completely imagine the soul-stirring experience. Let's go to Tianxiang Mountain, Chi-yu said quietly. His voice was a little weak. He felt that his heart was very tired, and his spirit was also extremely tired. He didn't even want to absorb the energy in the air to restore his body's functions. Ryue gently nodded. Her right hand was still held by Chi-yu, and she used her left hand to control the steering wheel. They followed the airport highway into the ring road, and headed in the direction of Tianxiang Mountain. Along the way, Chi-yu didn't say a word. He calmly leaned against the seat. His breathing was also very weak, as if he was asleep or unconscious. The energy in his body was also very weak. From Ryue's point of view, he seemed to have lost control of the energy. This was a feeling that she had never felt before. By the time the car reached Tianxiang Mountain, the sky had already darkened. By the time Chi-yu returned to the Longyu Courtyard, it was already afternoon. The Longyu Courtyard and Tianxiang Mountain were in two different directions. They were in the east and west of the capital. Ryue didn't want to drive too fast and affect Chi-yu, so it took about an hour to reach the foot of the mountain. After parking the car, Ryue wanted to get out to open the door for Chi-yu. However, Chi-yu held her hand tightly, as if their hands were glued together. It seemed that he didn't want to let go, like a child relying on his mother. Ryue only struggled a little, then stopped. She sat in the driver's seat, tilted her head, and quietly looked at Chi-yu. She didn't want to disturb him, so she just quietly waited. When the sun gradually fell from the west and the sky became darker, Chi-yu reluctantly opened his eyes. Do you have smoke? Ryue nodded, took out a pack of cigarettes from the storage box, took one out and lit it for Chi-yu. He took a deep breath and exhaled the smoke. Looking at the blurred smoke in front of him, Chi-Yu's eyes became a little confused. In that confusion, there was a deep pain. Ryue, don't ever leave me, okay? His voice carried a bit of a sob. Ryu held Chi-Ho's left hand with her other hand and said, Fool, stop talking nonsense. How can I leave you? Chi-Yu turned his head and looked at her deeply. Today is the last night I will allow myself to be weak. From tomorrow onwards I will become a different person. From now on I will never allow myself to be weak because of anything. I will always maintain a rational state. I will never let the people I love and my friends come to any harm. Ryue looked at Chi-Yu's red eyes, slowly pulled him to her side, and let his head rest on her shoulder. Say it. Maybe you will feel better if you say it. No matter what happens to you, I won't blame you. Leaning on Ryue's shoulder, Chi-Yu smelled the faint fragrance on her body. It was as if he had found a driftwood in the raging sea. He snuggled up to her tightly. Ryue, do you know? When Wen-Ting merged her body with mine, I suddenly felt that I had let you all down. I had let each and every one of you down. I was the biggest bastard in the world. Tears flowed uncontrollably. Chi-Yu's whole body trembled slightly. Ryue listened to him quietly. Their fingers were intertwined like a pair of lovers who had just fallen in love. They snuggled up to each other in the car, feeling each other's heartbeat. Back then, I had Ming. I really liked her. Before I became Kirin, I never thought that I, Chi-Yu, would have such a beautiful girlfriend. At that time, the satisfaction in my heart could not be described with words. However, later on, I met you and Wen-Ting. Your beauty moved my heart. Although I still loved Ming, I couldn't help but fall in love with you. At that time, I never thought that doing so would be unfair to you. Later on, after you found out about this, you still didn't blame me. Instead, you continued to love me silently, which made me feel even more satisfied. Although I also felt a sense of crisis, I also felt a trace of dissatisfaction in your hearts. However, at that time, I always comforted myself with Master Zagrue's words that Kirin needed 4 women to be enough. It was only when Wen-Ting died for me that I understood. Although I really regret it, I can no longer give up on any of you. Because of your relationship, I became more and more confident in myself. I even foolishly thought that I could get any woman. The hooligan aura that I had cultivated since I was young made my immunity to beautiful women extremely poor. It was also because of this that I suffered this blow, a blow that I will never be able to make up for. At this point, Chi-Yu was sobbing uncontrollably. His body trembled as he subconsciously revealed a trace of evil aura. He snuggled up to Ryue. He realized that the women around him were more important than his own life. Ryue sighed softly and said, Actually, when you and Ming were together, I didn't have that kind of feeling for you. However, as things developed, I realized that it's hard to control one's inner feelings. After we had that relationship, I even thought of quitting, but I really couldn't do it. Chi-Yu, don't blame yourself. This isn't your fault alone. If you're wrong, all of us are at fault. Moreover, didn't everything go well in the end? Whether it was Ming or Wen-Ting, they didn't have the thought of monopolizing you. Even though we all regretted not being able to monopolize you, we chose to accept it. Because in our hearts we truly love you, and it is precisely because of this that we understand how painful it is to leave you. So, why would we force the other two? Chi-Yu took a deep breath and suddenly let go of Ryue's hand. He said, Let's go to the top of the mountain. He wiped the tears on his face. Ryue didn't notice that Chi-Yu's tears had a faint red color. After getting out of the car, the two of them didn't use their abilities. They held hands and slowly walked up the mountain. You should have guessed it already. After walking for half an hour to the mountainside, Chi-Yu suddenly stopped. Ryue gently nodded and said, It has something to do with Athena, right? Chi-Yu suddenly turned around and fiercely pulled Ryue into his arms. He hugged her tightly, so that his body was completely attached to Ryue's. He didn't speak for a long time. Ryue gently stroked Chi-Yu's back. Tell me, what happened to you? Chi-Yu nodded. Thundercloud force flowed within his body, carrying him and Ryue's body. In just a moment, under the support of the thundercloud force, they had already arrived at the top of Tianxiang Mountain. At this time, Tianxiang Mountain was very quiet. There was not a single person. Today's sky was very dark. There was no moon. The entire mountain was pitch black. Only the distant lights of the capital could be seen. Chiyu hugged Ryue and sat down on a big rock. He let her sit on his lap. His hands wrapped around her slender waist. His right hand intertwined with Ryue's left hand. He used his body to almost wrap Ryue up. That day we took the plane that Yamu sent and arrived at Athena. After that, everything began according to heaven's arrangement. Chiyu began to quietly narrate, telling every detail in detail. This included his inner thoughts about Yamu. He told Ryue without reservation. Listening to him, Ryue quietly leaned on Chiyu's shoulder. Although her mood was fluctuating with Chiyu's story. However, she realized that ever since she had established her relationship with Chiyu, there had never been a day where she was as peaceful and happy as today. Every cell in Chiyu's body was full of attachment to her. It was not a physical attachment, but completely from the heart. This feeling of being cared for made Ryue feel that no matter how much she had to pay for Chiyu, it was worth it. It was also at this time that she fully realized that Chiyu's love for her was such a small advantage. Dead, when Ting is dead, the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King is also dead. In order to save my life, they sacrificed their precious lives. I still clearly remember that when Ting completely fused with my body, she still did not blame me at all. She even used her last breath to comfort my heart. What have I done for her? Nothing. In the end, she still could not escape the fate of the giant beast relic. This is all my fault, all my fault. If I had not been attracted to Yamu, if I had been more careful, none of this would have happened. Even if I could not defeat those strong people, I could at least run away. It was because I trusted Yamu too much that so many people died because of me. Ryue, my heart really hurts, it hurts so much that I can't breathe. Finally finished speaking, the light in Chiyu's eyes completely disappeared. His grayish-white eyes looked at Yamu. In the darkness, his tears of blood had already wet Ryue's white clothes, but at this time, neither of them felt it. Chiyu. Ryue had just said 2 words when she was interrupted by Chiyu. Holding her tightly, Chiyu murmured, "Don't say anything, okay? Don't comfort me, don't blame me. I just want to hold you like this now. I've already lost Wenting. I can't lose you and Mingming too. In the past, I was always impulsive. Even after returning from the ancient giant beast age, with the Xianyuan sword, I thought that there were no opponents in this world. The fault I owe is not only on Yamu, but also on myself. From the moment the sun rises tomorrow, I will become rational. From now on, no matter what the situation is, I must calculate everything clearly. From tomorrow onwards, I will never be separated from you again. I will use the rest of my life to protect you forever." Ryue felt her shoulder wet. It was Chiyu's tears. Since he began to talk about his experience in the West, his tears had not stopped flowing. They were tears of regret, tears of sorrow for the deaths of Wenting, Klinsman, and Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King. He was right. At this time, he was completely showing his weak side. Only in this way could he completely express the depression in his heart. Chiyu's body was very cold. Ryue carefully released her body heat to warm his body. A faint light was emitted. Just as Chiyu said, she let him hug her body and snuggle with her. Chapter 211. Chiyu's eyes were still open. He held Ryue in his arms. His heart was very, very calm, and he maintained a motionless posture. For the entire night, he quietly looked ahead, feeling the warmth from Ryue's body. In Chiyu's arms, Ryue also did not sleep for the entire night. At the same time, she did not say a word. The pain in her heart was no less than Chiyu's. At this moment, Chiyu was like a little boy who had suffered a huge blow. His body and mind were greatly injured. Although he was holding her, Ryue clearly understood that he was at his weakest, and her warmth was the best medicine to make up for the pain in his heart. When the sun rose from the far east, it brought a new day of light and vitality to the land of Yen Huang. The feeling of the rising sun gradually raised the temperature of the air. With Ryue's strength, it would not be a problem for her to maintain the same position for an entire night. However, she was very nervous. She did not sleep for the entire night. She was constantly worried about the man who was holding her, and she was constantly feeling the aura from Chi-Yu's body. She was afraid that something would happen to him. Her heart was very heavy. Although Chi-Yu did not cry out, the clothes on her shoulders were wet throughout the night. The silent tears did not stop flowing. Chi-Yu, the sun has risen. We should go back. Didn't you say that before? Last night was your last moment of weakness. I believe that you will definitely become stronger. What others give us we will repay it 1,000 times over, Ryue said softly. She was really worried about Chi-Yu's state. Hearing Ryue's words, Chi-Yu said a little blankly, "The sun has risen? But why is it still so dark?" Ryue's heart tightened. An extremely bad premonition filled her heart. She could no longer bear it. She pulled Chi-Yu's hand and struggled to stand up in his arms. When she saw her clothes under the sunlight, she couldn't help but let out a scream. "Ah, Chi-Yu!" Tears gushed out uncontrollably. Ryue hugged Chi-Yu tightly in her soft embrace. That was because she saw that half of her white dress had turned red, starting from her shoulders. Although the red wasn't very deep, she knew what it was based on the moist feeling. Not only had Chi-Ho shed silent tears for an entire night, but he had also shed blood. It was obvious how much pain he was suffering in his heart. Chi-Yu was held in Ryue's arms in a daze. He muttered to himself, "What's wrong with me? Why is it so dark? I can't see anything. Am I blind? Chi-Yu, don't scare me." Ryue desperately injected her thundercloud force into Chi-Yu's body, trying to help him adjust the aura in his body. However, the energy she injected was rejected by Chi-Yu again. "No, Ryue, I can't take your energy. Don't lose to me. Do you want me to feel the pain that Wen-Ting gave me when she fused with her body again?" Chi-Yu hugged Ryue. "It's really dawn. I can feel the temperature of the sun." Ryue sobbed and hugged Chi-Yu. "Why did it become like this? Chi-Yu, didn't you say you would protect me? Nothing can happen to you. If worst comes to worst, we won't be the Zodiac guardian god anymore. We can take Ming Ming and Snow Girl and find a beautiful place to live in seclusion. Although I don't have Wen-Ting, I can still be Snow Girl's mother. Chi-Yu, don't scare me. I can't lose you. Could it be that you want me to experience the pain you experienced when you lost Wen-Ting?" Chi-Yu's emotions gradually calmed down. He gently stroked Ryue's long hair and shook his head. "Silly girl, why would I? How could I bear to let you suffer that kind of pain? I said yesterday that from today onwards, I will become a new Chi-Yu. Can't you see? Maybe this is God's punishment for me. Ryue, do you know? This makes me feel much better. A person has to pay the price for doing something wrong. No, I don't want you to pay the price. I'd rather you transfer all the pain you've suffered to me." Ryue threw herself into Chi-Yu's arms and sobbed painfully. This was the first time a smile had appeared on Chi-Yu's face since Wen-Ting's death. It was a very faint smile, and the rays of the morning sun shone on his face, giving it a golden outline. Chi-Yu's eyes had already turned light red. Only his pupils were gray. He couldn't see. He really couldn't see. However, his heart was truly freed from sorrow as the sun gradually rose. A loud and clear roar rang out from Chi-Yu's mouth. His clear and impassioned voice brought everyone's mood out of the abyss. First, a pair of black, untamed beasts broke free from his back and spread out to the side. Every single piece of black armor gave off a faint glow under the sunlight. Then, another pair of wings appeared behind the black wings. Those were pure gold wings. When the wings were completely spread out, they slowly closed in front of Chiyu, completely wrapping up Ryue's delicate body. I'm not an angel. However, from today onwards, I will use my wings to protect you, my love. I will also protect my friends. Ryue, don't be sad for me. The current Chiyu is the real Kirin. At least, the sorrow in my heart has disappeared. Let us start our lives anew. I've lost everything. I will work hard to bring us back to me. The people who hurt us, I will make them pay. I have lost my sight, but I still have the heart's eye. I can also see everything outside. Although his eyes had lost their luster, his heart was now alive again. Although he had lost his sight on the surface, the source of nature could make plants become his eyes. Green negative energy revolved around Chi-Yu's body. Then, blue water and red fire. The two completely opposite energies actually became harmonious at this moment. They revolved around Chi-Yu together with the wind. Just like the moon, it soothed the wound in his heart. The purple lightning was like a small spirit snake, fluctuating in an orderly manner. At this moment, the purple lightning was Chi-Yu's heart was completely immersed in his love for Ryue. The Kirin pearl lost its luster and shone again. Under the light of the sun, after a night of release, the pain had already left. He had lost his sight, but in exchange for a new life, Chi-Yu's heart was completely awakened. Just as he had said, the current him had truly grown up. His black hair had turned white, and his black eyes had turned light red. Although this boy had sacrificed a lot to grow up, from now on, his heart had already undergone a huge change. Feeling the tenderness of the wings, Ryue's heart felt a little more comfortable. However, she still felt very painful. Her tears almost dyed her clothes red. How much pain was that? Now, she would rather die for Chi-Yu than for Wen Ting. Slowly raising his head, Chi-Yu took a deep breath. Once again, he let out a long roar. All the plants in Tianxiang Mountain moved along with his roar. The aura of the source of nature. It allowed him to see everything around him with his heart. At this moment, the plants had already become his eyes. With a slight smile, Chi-Yu's light red eyes revealed a trace of light red. The silver eyes of the Kirin tattoo on his chest had also unknowingly turned light red. He lowered his head and kissed Ryue's delicate face. Then, he used his own face to gently caress it. What a comfortable feeling! Ryue, we should go back. A new day has arrived. Kirin should also pull himself together. Ryue struggled out of Chi-Yu's embrace and took off her red dress in front of him. Her eyes flickered. I will keep it forever. I will also remember last night. Promise me, my love. Never let that scene happen again. Otherwise, I'm afraid you will really lose me. Because your pain is also my pain. I can't bear such pain again. Looking at the woman in front of him attentively, Chi-Yu slowly and firmly nodded. I promise. With a trace of a faint light in his eyes, Ryue's proud naked body once again merged into his embrace. Her smooth skin rubbed against Chi-Yu's body. At this moment, both of them had no desire for sex, only a deep affection for each other. When Chi-Yu and Ryue returned to the Dragonfield courtyard, it was already early in the morning. Chi-Yu had returned to his room and hadn't come out yet. Meanwhile, Ryue had asked Zhobu to fill the entire villa with all kinds of plants. After gathering all the Zodiac guardian warriors, Ryue calmly told everyone everything that had happened to Chi-Yu in the west. It was Chi-Yu who had asked her to do this. Since everything had been figured out, there was no need to hide it. After all, everyone had the right to know everything. Silence. After Ryue finished her story, the entire hall was silent for a full 5 minutes. Su Dong let out a long sigh. I'm afraid that nothing is more painful than being betrayed by someone you love deeply. Chi-Yu has endured so much and experienced so much. It's no wonder that he suffered such a huge blow. Ryue, what should we do to make him feel better? Ryue lowered her head and quietly said, Don't you blame him? For the sake of a woman, he let himself become like this. Don't you blame him? Guan Ping also let out a sigh and shook his head with a bitter smile. What's there to blame? It's very difficult to use common sense to think about things like feelings. What's more, Chiyu has already endured so much pain. I believe that this experience will make him more mature than he was before. I believe that our King of the Zodiac will definitely walk out of his pain. What we need to do is not to blame him, but to find a way to walk out of his pain faster and better. Yen Xiaoyi scolded angrily. Yumu, that be asterisk, TC. Damn it, she actually cheated boss's feelings like this. If there's a chance, I'll definitely rape her. Isn't she a virgin? I'll make it so that she can't be a god anymore. Let's see how she'll continue to be so horny. Hu Guang let out a cold snort. Greece and the Vatican, they really don't care about us Asians. Second brother, looks like it's time for our Sacred Flame sect to take action. We must let them know that us Asians are not so easily bullied. This time, Ian actually accepted the title of second brother. He said in a low voice, "What are you going to do? Those elders in the Vatican will not agree with our impulsive decision." Hu Guang's eyes revealed a hint of disdain. Those old fellows, other than holding us back, what else can they do? Blame them for going to hell. How could they possibly object to my decision? Let's not go overboard. Contact the foreign mercenaries. I haven't seen fireworks in a long time. I think Greece and London's St. Paul's Cathedral would be a good place to set off fireworks. Modi walked to Ryue's side. She could see that Ryue did not look too good today. She was abnormally pale. She held on to Ryue's hand and said in a low voice, "How is he? You guys didn't come back last night. Everyone is very worried. I've already talked to Whitey. She will participate in our collective training." Ryue shook her head gently and said, "At least on the surface, he looks much better than yesterday. But it's easier said than done to walk out of such pain. Maybe deep down, everyone has some opinions about Chi-Yu and thinks that he is not calm enough. He became like this because of a woman. But this time, he did pay a huge price. Do you know? Last night, his tears dyed my dress red. Now, he is blind." "What?" almost everyone exclaimed. Even Mo Dan, who was standing in the corner, couldn't help but be shocked. She looked at Ryue with a strange look in her eyes. Ryue sighed and said, "I hope that everyone will not mention this in the future. Even if it's for my sake, I don't want Chi-Yu to suffer any more. Yes, we Zodiac Guardian warriors are equal. No one can order others to do anything. But Chi-Yu's experience this time has also given us a wake-up call. In this world, there are still many existences that can threaten us. For the future of the Zodiac Guardian warriors, this collective training is very important. Even I don't know if Chi-Yu's mental state is stable now. I hope that everyone can be more tolerant of him, okay?" Everyone nodded. Even Mo Dan didn't say anything against it. Ryue raised her head and looked at the end of the stairs. She sighed in her heart. "Chi-Yu, I hope you can recover soon." After returning to his room, Chi-Yu's heart was in pain. It was so quiet that even he felt it was a little unbelievable. The suffocating pain in his heart had quietly disappeared. What was left was only a soothing feeling. His face looked a little cold, and his eyes had lost their luster. However, his thundercloud force had changed at the moment of enlightenment in the morning. At that moment, when Ting's energy had been completely absorbed by his body. The thundercloud force in his body was also recovering quickly. It absorbed 4 different energy molecules in the air to replenish itself. At that moment in the morning, Chi-Yu suddenly realized that Master Zagru was right. As a Kirin of the 4 auspicious clouds, thundercloud force was his foundation. It was unrealistic to expect to rely on the Xianyuan sword before he fully grasped the elk skill. After all, although the Xianyuan sword was powerful, it consumed a lot of energy. Only the elk skill was his main strength. Kirin Pearl lit up under the effect of the thundercloud force. 3 figures appeared in front of Chi-Yu at the same time. Snow Girl had already woken up in Kirin Pearl. Chi-Yu's pain had been transmitted to every corner of Kirin Pearl through his breath. Looking at Chi Yu's gloomy eyes, Snow Girl didn't say anything. She just quietly walked to Chi Yu and went into his arms. Dad, I know. You're not dead. You'll always be my dad. Swear we'll be strong. After saying that, Snow Girl kissed Chi Yu's face. She didn't stay for another second and walked out of his room. After Snow Girl left, Ming Ming and Christy looked at Chi Yu quietly. They had also woken up. After several days of recuperation in Kirin Pearl, their injuries had recovered a little. Christy said, "There's no need to apologize. It has already happened. Chi Yu, I just hope that you can stand by my side when I go to avenge my brother. Just like Wen Ting, my brother didn't die. Now we siblings have completely merged. Su Qing is no longer Su Qing. There's only Christy, the new leader of the Dracula family." Chi Yu nodded to Christy. "Thank you, Christy. Just like Klinsmann, although I'm not as old as you, from now on, I will replace him and fulfill the responsibility of an elder brother. I will protect you at all costs. This is my promise." Christy revealed a faint smile. Although she looked a little embarrassed and the wounds on her body were clotted with golden blood, her breath was very calm. Just like Chi Yu, she had also grown up and matured after this incident. Just like she said, Su Qing, who was under Klinsmann's protection, had died. The new leader of the Dracula family, Christy, had been reborn. Ming Ming looked deeply at Chi Yu. She didn't say anything, but her gentle eyes had said a lot. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, a faint thundercloud force circulated around her body. Her voice echoed in Chi Yu's heart. "If it were me that day, I would have done the same. If it were you, you would have done the same. Sister Wen Ting isn't dead. She will stand in front of you again sooner or later, right?" Chi Yu sat cross-legged, forming a triangle with Christy and Ming Ming. His eyes flickered slightly as the 4 types of cloud energy in his body began to circulate under the effect of his gradually recovering mental strength. Following Xing Lin's most fundamental cultivation method, he began to absorb the energy molecules in the air. The energy from his origin of nature formed a light green barrier in the room, enveloping the 3 of them. Not only did it heal the injuries suffered when his bodily functions were exhausted, it also assisted Christy and Ming Ming in their self-healing. The biggest characteristic of the source of nature energy was that it was neutral and peaceful. Back then, it was also because of this that he was used by Yamu. Therefore, whether it was Ming Ming's energy or Christy's powerful dark energy, they didn't reject the aura of the source of nature at all. In the pale green light barrier, the 3 of them emitted different lights at the same time. When Snow Girl came to the villa's hall, Ryue had already told everyone everything. Seeing Snow Girl coming down, Ryue hurriedly greeted her, a trace of concern in her beautiful eyes. Snow Girl gently shook her head and said, "I'm fine." Ryue said, "Although Wen Ting is gone, I will treat you like her in the future. Are you willing to recognize me as your mother?" Snow Girl said, "Everything is over. Don't worry, Dad will be fine. I can feel that he has thought it through. Mom, we can't put all the burden on Dad. I want to do everything I can to help Dad. If possible, from now on, completely hand over the Kirin group to me." Guan Ping said, "Snow Girl is right. We can't put all the burden on Chi Yu. We are all Zodiac Guardian warriors, we should share some of the burden with him. And the best way is to make yourself stronger. Only when we, the Guardians of the East, are strong enough will we not be bullied by outsiders." Ryue's sad eyes gradually brightened. Tyrannosaurus Rex's aura gradually recovered. Looking at the Zodiac Guardian warriors around her, she said in a deep voice, "Su Dong, immediately contact the 4 families. The Eastern Guardians are one, it's time for them to contribute some strength. Although our strength is gradually increasing, there are only 13 of us after all. Our strength is limited in the end. We can't be like Yamu and get the support of the whole country. We can only rely on ourselves. Within 3 days, the 4 families will each pick 30 youths with the most potential. Send them to the Dragon Field courtyard. It's time for us to grow stronger. Su Dong said with some worry. I'm afraid this will be a bit difficult. The four families have always cherished those with potential. I'm afraid they won't agree. Ryue coldly snorted and said, They won't agree? No, you're wrong. They have no reason to disagree. You can tell them that those who are sent here will be taught by us. Moreover, they will belong to the four families. Their increase in strength will cause the overall strength of the four families to soar. Why would they disagree? We don't want to completely turn these people into our people. We just want to help the four families increase their overall strength. The responsibility of protecting the Eastern Guardian Warriors is not just the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. The four families have existed for so many years. They also have this responsibility, don't you think so? After hearing Ryue's explanation, Su Dong's expression gradually relaxed. After all, he was also from the four families. After thinking about it carefully, he understood that everything Ryue wanted to do was extremely beneficial to the four families. Ryue continued, Of course, before these youths become truly strong, they must stay by our side. At the same time, before we allow them to return to their families, they must listen to our orders. This time period will be set at 3 years. Sacrificing 3 years in exchange for a group of powerful people is definitely a good thing for the four families. Of course, I can't guarantee that when the time comes, the number of people who will return to their families will still be 30. Su Dong muttered, I can only do my best. I can't guarantee that the four great clans will definitely agree. However, there shouldn't be any problems with our Su clan. It's time to tell the clan my identity. Ryue nodded and said, I believe in your ability. Go and inform them now. Su Dong nodded and turned back to his room to make a phone call. At this time, Ryue fully displayed the demeanor of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. The domineering aura emitted from her body made all the Zodiac Guardian warriors feel restricted by the pressure. Hu Guang, Ian, don't act rashly on your side. I basically know what Chi Yu is going to do next. Quietly transport the weapons I asked you to prepare last time. It's time for them to come in handy. It's not our chance for revenge yet. Chi Yu has made an appointment with Athena's successor, Yamu, to settle this matter at Mount Everest next January. Before that, we don't do anything to the west. Only when the time is completely ripe will we start our real action. Hu Guang thought for a moment and said, Well, we'll listen to you. Second brother, we'll go arrange it now. Ryue turned her eyes to the rest of the Zodiac Guardian warriors and said indifferently, After Chi Yu recovers, we'll start concentrating on training. At that time, the process of training will be very difficult. It's better for everyone to be prepared. If we can't bear it, as long as we start concentrating on training, I'm afraid that Chi Yu won't be as easy to talk to as he is now. Everyone should remember the battle between him and us clearly. Since we've decided to support him, we'll do our best. I hope everyone is prepared. Changjie said straightforwardly, That's no problem. As long as we can increase our strength, we should pay a little more. After all, the more we pay, the more we get back. The others nodded one after another. Guanjing curled her lips and said, As long as I get my salary, I don't care about anything else. As long as there's money, I'll do whatever you want me to do. He had been in the Dragon Field courtyard for a while, and his aptitude could be said to be the worst among the Zodiac Guardian warriors. His body had been hollowed out in the special industry for the past few years. If it wasn't for Grandmaster Zagru's finger strength, his body would be far inferior to an ordinary person. Therefore, deep in his heart, he was very grateful to Chi Yu. At least, Chi Yu gave him a chance to live a new life and get money. Why not? At the same time, he gradually liked this kind of life. Mo Dan glanced at Guanjing and said proudly, Anyway, I won't lose to anyone. However, Vol, you promised me that as long as I'm willing to participate in this concentrating training, you must keep your word and let me be your girlfriend. Vol glanced at Mo Dan, then looked at Modi and said coldly, Since I've promised, I'll keep my word. However, the condition is that you don't cause trouble for boss. Among the crowd, the youngest was Dan, followed by Vol. She didn't know why, but when Modi heard Vol's words, she suddenly had a very uncomfortable feeling in her heart. All this time, although Vol had never confessed to her, everyone could see Vol's affection for her. Modi had no doubt that if she was in the same situation as Chi-yu, Vol would also do the same thing as Wen-ting. Although there was a huge gap between the two of them in terms of age and appearance, after living together for so many days, Vol's unwavering affection made her no longer treat him as her student. Although Modi couldn't accept this feeling in his heart. However, when Dan just said that Vol had agreed to be her boyfriend, Modi suddenly had a special feeling in her heart. She didn't know why she suddenly felt very empty and uncomfortable, but Vol's appearance seemed to have changed a lot from before. She was very clear about how little Vol had taken advantage of her feelings. However, for Chi-yu, for his brother, he was willing to give up his only pursuit and choose Dan. At this moment, in Modi's eyes, Vol was no longer her obedient student, but a real responsible man. Chi-yu's cultivation lasted for a full 5 days. When he walked out of the room, the whole villa of the Dragon Field courtyard was filled with a green atmosphere, and there were different plants in almost every corner. Under the effect of the energy of the source of nature, although he couldn't see, he could clearly sense every detail around him through these plants. Thundercloud force had recovered to the level of 6 cloud, and every type of thundercloud force had reached the peak of 6 cloud. His body's injuries had completely recovered, and the source of nature had stabilized. Although compared to when he was at his peak, the natural energy was much less, at least it wouldn't affect his cultivation. After discussing with Master Zagru, Chi-yu improved his cultivation method a lot. He no longer converted all the thundercloud force into Kirin's source of nature's energy, and absorbed the energy aura through the source of nature to cultivate. Instead, just like when he first started cultivating, he would cultivate the 4 types of cloud power separately. The energy from the origin of nature would only be used to absorb the energy molecules, so that the 4 types of cloud power would become more condensed. During these 5 days of cultivation and recovery, Yang Kai had been cultivating for a long time. He finally found out why his strength didn't increase as much after reaching 7 cloud in the west as he had imagined. This was because, under the effect of the source of nature, he converted all the thundercloud force into source of nature's energy, so the 7 cloud state he reached was actually equivalent to the 7 cloud state Kirin had reached. Chapter 212. It was just a breakthrough in strength and not a complete breakthrough in the 4 types of thundercloud force. That was why the advantages of Ink Kirin weren't fully revealed. Besides, he also realized that his cultivation method was somewhat different from the cultivation method that Hua taught him. His Kirin's origin energy was different from ordinary Kirin's. Ordinary Kirin only needed to improve his strength through a single type of thundercloud force. Upgrading a single type of thundercloud force was equivalent to upgrading Kirin's origin energy. However, it was different for Road. He could only become a true 7 cloud being after upgrading the 4 types of thundercloud force to the 7 cloud realm. Based on his deduction, his strength would be twice as strong as when he was in the 7 cloud realm. This discovery piqued Chi-yu's interest in Kirin's ascending cloud technique. When he cultivated, he absorbed the origin energy of Kirin into his body. He split his attention to absorb wind, fire, water, and lightning energy molecules in the air to fill his body and cultivate the 4 types of thundercloud force at the same time. Although the progress wasn't fast, every bit of improvement made him feel real. As long as he upgraded the 4 types of thundercloud force to the 7 cloud realm in different environments, he would be able to return to the 7 cloud realm and become a true 7 cloud being. In 5 days, under the effects of the source of nature, Ming and Christie's bodies had basically recovered. It was especially so for Christie. Her recovery speed was much faster than Chi-yu had imagined. Her realm as a blood empress had made her far stronger than ordinary vampires. Even though she had lost a lot of blood that day, it didn't affect her too much. It was just that her energy was damaged too much. With revenge as the strongest pillar of support in her heart, Christie cultivated with all her might without any distractions. Not only did the 5 days heal her injuries, but she also recovered about 50% of her strength. After 5 days of meditation and cultivation, she had a deeper understanding of her strength as a blood empress. After 5 days of meditation and cultivation, with the help of the energy from the source of nature, she had a deeper understanding of her ability to become a blood empress. She also had a clearer understanding of the blood divine puppet. It wouldn't take long. She would be able to regain her full strength. Ming Ming's recovery speed was much slower than Christie's. Chi Yu's blindness and Wen Ting's death had greatly affected her mood. Furthermore, she had used up too much energy in the form of the rainbow bird last time. The chicken Zodiac's source power had been greatly damaged. Although the injuries on the surface had healed, his thundercloud force had only recovered by about 10%. His body was still very weak, and he needed some time to recuperate before he could fully recover. During these 5 days, apart from cultivating and healing, Chi Yu buried the sorrow in the deepest part of his heart. He had thought it through. What had already happened. Even if he was sad, what could he do? Klinsmann and the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King couldn't die in vain. If he wanted to resurrect Wen Ting, in that case, he would first have to possess sufficient strength. At the very least, only when he had enough strength could he awaken Wen Ting's spirit. The nature's source replaced Chi Yu's vision. Although he couldn't see everything around him like real eyes, he could still feel the atmosphere around him. Standing in front of the window, Chi Yu's light red eyes were wide open. If one didn't know better, no one would think that he was blind. Chi Yu, I have to go. Christie's cold voice had a hint of softness. Do you hate me? Chi Yu smiled bitterly. Christie said indifferently, so what if I hate him or not? My brother is already dead. I've said it before. From now on, I am the direct successor of the Dracula family. I am the new leader of the Dracula family. My brother's blood will not be shed in vain. The Dracula family needs me, so I have to leave now. Slowly turning around and facing Christie, Chi Yu said, in the process of healing you, I have used my spiritual power to connect with yours. If you are in danger, as long as I am still in this world, I will immediately feel it. Klinsmann is dead, so from now on I am your brother. Promise me, don't act rashly. When I come back, when I come to the West again, we will definitely settle the debt. Christie nodded and said, Okay, I will wait for you. The Dracula family can only temporarily disappear for a while. After all, the blow to the Dracula family this time was devastating. I'm afraid that before I return, even the family's ancient castle will be destroyed. The other vampire families will not let go of such a good opportunity. I'm leaving. Take care of yourself. She walked past Chi Yu. Chi Yu didn't notice that her purple-gold eyes were filled with tears before she flew out of the window. Christie's departure made Chi Yu feel that the responsibility on his shoulders had become heavier. He took a deep breath and calmed himself down. His face had become as cold as the ice on Kunlun Mountain. He knew that for a long time to come, he would only have one goal, and that was to become stronger. He would walk down the path of the strong without end. Losing his sight was not only a bad thing, but it also made it easier for him to focus on everything. He focused on Karji's cultivation. At the same time, this trip to the West also made him understand that no matter how strong a person was, his strength was still limited. Therefore, it wasn't just him who had to become stronger, but also the Zodiac Guardian warriors as a whole. With a thought, Chi Yu suddenly felt something. The wind thundercloud force made his body as light as a feather. After setting up an energy boundary around Ming Ming, he flew out of the window and arrived at the lawn outside the Dragon Field courtyard in a flash. Ryue was standing there when she felt Chi-Yu's aura. She turned around and just happened to see Chi-Yu's descending figure. Today, Chi-Yu wore a black long-sleeved shirt and black trousers. His pale white hair was scattered over his shoulders and was slightly messy. The visual impact of the white and black made her heart ache. Chi-Yu's eyes were still light red. Although his aura had regained its strength, he still lost his sight. Thinking back to the bloodstain on her white dress that day, Ryue resisted her tears. Chi-Yu landed lightly beside Ryue. He naturally held her hand and their fingers intertwined. Ryue relaxed a little. Ku relaxed slightly and said softly, "Are you feeling better?" Chi-Yu nodded. He revealed a faint smile. "Don't worry, I'm fine now. Is everyone ready? I estimate that in 2 days at most, Ming Ming's body will recover to about 70%. At that time, it will be time for us to set off." Ryue nodded and said, "Everyone is basically ready. I've already talked to Mo Dan very clearly. Chi-Yu, don't think too much. No matter what, everyone will definitely support you." Chi-Yu sighed and said, "I have an idea that I wanted to discuss with you." "Okay," Ryue said. "Just like what you said, one person's strength is ultimately insignificant. Even our Zodiac Guardian God warriors only have a total of 13 people. When the East needs our protection, our vast and abundant motherland is not something that the 13 of us can completely take care of. And protecting the East is not only our responsibility. So, I thought of a way to let the 4 big families also participate." Chi-Yu's aura changed slightly, because he suddenly thought of Shin Yun, who was now the Gemini constellation guardian Yu Yun. "Then what do you want to do? Although the 4 big families can no longer go against us, but if we want them to help us sincerely, I'm afraid it won't be an easy task." Ryue's eyes revealed a cold glint. "Those old fellows are all selfish. It's impossible for them to help us for free, but as long as the benefits we offer are big enough, we don't have to be afraid that they won't agree. That's my plan." As he said that, Ryue whispered a few words into Chi-Yu's ears. Hearing Ryue's words, Chi-Yu lightly nodded his head and said, "This is a very good idea. However, I do not know how strong the 4 great clans are. Although I have a certain amount of confidence in increasing their strength, the extent to which they can increase their strength is greatly related to their own talent. Furthermore, you should understand my plan. Once they reach that place, they might meet with danger at any time. I can't guarantee that they will be able to return alive." Ryue smiled and said, "I have already explained it to the 4 big families very clearly. Although not everyone will be able to return alive, but as long as they are able to return alive, they will definitely play an important role in the development of the 4 big families in the future. In our circle, strength is the most important. As long as we use both kindness and authority, in the near future, the 4 big families that become stronger will be able to become our arms. This is for the long term." Chi-Yu's face revealed a look of gratification. "Ryue, you're smart. All right, then it's decided. When will the people from the 4 big families arrive?" Ryue said, "They have already arrived. I have arranged a place for them to stay temporarily. When we leave, we will bring them along." Chi-Yu nodded his head and said, "All right then, I will have to trouble you with this matter. I need to go out and do 2 things. You will temporarily stay in the courtyard and take care of Ming Ming. Ming Ming's internal injuries have already been treated by me. However, she had used up too much energy when she used her ability. Therefore, she still needs some time to recover her thundercloud force." Hearing that Chi-Yu wanted to leave, Ryue's expression immediately became nervous. "Chi-Yu, where are you going? How about I accompany you? Or, I can call Su-dong over and let him accompany you. This way, he can also take care of you." Chi-Yu released Ryue's hand and pulled her into his embrace. He kissed her lightly and said, "Silly girl, do you really think that I can't do anything after I become blind? Don't worry, nothing will happen to me. Don't forget that all the plants are my eyes. How about this, call Big Brother Jida over and let him go with me. Half an hour later, Jida rushed to the Dragon Field courtyard. He already knew that Ming Ming had returned. When he heard that his only sister was seriously injured, his heart was filled with anxiety. However, he also believed that Chi Yu would definitely be able to treat his sister's injuries. As soon as he entered the villa, Jida saw Chi Yu standing under the white dragon statue in the hall. Chi Yu stood there with his back facing the door, and he was the only one in the hall. Chi Yu, who was dressed in black, entered Jida's sight. He immediately felt a different feeling coming from his brother-in-law. It was a deathly still aura. Chi Yu's energy was completely restrained. Although he looked like an ordinary person, Jida could clearly feel that the current Chi Yu gave him more pressure than before. Master, you're back. How is Ming Ming? Could it be her? Seeing Chi Yu's black clothes, Jida subconsciously became nervous. Chi Yu shook his head and slowly turned around. With just one step, he was in front of Jida. He patted his shoulder twice and said, "Don't worry, Ming Ming is fine. It's all my fault. I didn't take good care of Ming Ming. Let's go. Bring me to the Yellow Flame Soul headquarters. I want to see the Plant Soul sister." As he spoke, he directly walked out of the villa. Jida hurriedly followed. "Master, your hair, and your eyes, what is going on?" Chi Yu's footsteps paused for a moment and he said, "Something happened in the west, but it's all over now. You can ask Ryue or someone else. I don't want to repeat myself. But before that, bring me to the Plant Soul. Back then, I promised her that I would help her regain her ability to speak. It's been delayed for so long, it's time to fulfill my promise." From the changes in Chi Yu's body, Jida could already see many things. After all, he was an elite from the Yenhuang Republic's special forces. Hearing this, he nodded and did not ask any more questions. He brought Chi Yu into his precious car and headed towards the Yellow Flame Soul headquarters. Ryue was in her room, watching Chi Yu and Jida leave through the window. The light in her eyes became even gentler, and there was a hint of sadness hidden in that gentle light. "The Plant Soul just came back from a mission a few days ago. She's getting stronger and stronger. She's already become a first-class expert in our Yellow Flame Soul. Master, when will you teach your disciple some martial arts? My position is getting lower and lower. You also know that I don't want to rely on the old man. Only my own strength truly belongs to me." This time, Chi Yu seemed to have changed into a different person. Feeling the cold aura from his body, Jida felt that it was very unnatural. That was why he purposely said these words to test him. Chi Yu thought about it and said, "All right. Then you can apply for leave from the Yellow Flame Soul headquarters. We will probably leave here the day after tomorrow and go to a mysterious place for special training. All the Zodiac Guardian warriors will participate. However, there's one thing I have to make clear first. No matter who you are, no matter what your position in the country is, you must never tell anyone about this special training. Otherwise, you won't be the only one who will suffer. Do you understand?" Jida was stunned for a moment and said, "What can't the country know about it? Master, the country is very supportive of you, especially after you solved the matter with the vampires. Right now, your position in Yenhuang is definitely extraordinary." Chi Yu shook his head and said, "If you can't guarantee it, then don't go. Moreover, I won't go easy on you just because you're Ming Ming's brother. I'll give you 2 days to think about it." Hearing Chi Yu's words, Jida couldn't help but be a little angry. "Master, what are you saying? When have I ever been afraid of hardship in training? You have to know that I'm a training maniac with a famous virtue. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to directly enter the Yellow Flame Soul headquarters with just the virtue of my body." Chi Yu's eyes were now completely dark. There were no plants in the car, so he could only rely on his other senses to feel everything around him. In a situation where he couldn't see, his spiritual power had become his main use of virtue. Not only did it mobilize the power of nature, but it also allowed him to sense the aura of everything around him. Alright, in any case, think about it carefully. I'm just reminding you that the special virtue training this time is much more difficult than the training in Taklamakan. This is because some of the training is not aimed at human virtue at all. It's extremely dangerous. Hearing Chi Yu's words, Jida couldn't help but shudder. However, he still gritted his teeth and said resolutely, "There's no need to think about it. Master, I'll go with you. No matter what, I'm your first disciple. This must be a very good opportunity. No matter how difficult it is, I'm willing to endure it." The cold lines on Chi Yu's face softened a little. He nodded lightly and said, "If you can endure it, I think the #1 expert in the Yellow Flame Soul headquarters will definitely change." Jida's pursuit of strength was definitely not inferior to anyone else's. Hearing Chi Yu say this, he was even more determined to participate in this special virtue training. His eyes shone with a fiery light. "Master, then don't treat me like a person. Anything is fine." The headquarters of the Yellow Flame Soul headquarters was not a secret place like Chi Yu had imagined. Instead, it was in the busiest part of the capital. When Jida drove the car to this place, through the surrounding trees, Chi Yu felt that this seemed to be a huge office building. The office building was shaped like a rocket. It felt a little strange, but in such a bustling area it was the most unique building. Jida parked the car and said, "Treasure pet, master, we're here." Chi Yu got out of the car. With the help of his spiritual power, he walked to Jida's side. "Where is this? I feel that this should be near the East 3rd Ring Road. Is this the International Trade Center?" Jida smiled and said, "Yes, this is the International Trade Center. This is the Chinese server building, opposite the International Trade Center. It's a very unique building here. Let's go, master, let's go in." As he spoke, he led Chi Yu into the building. As soon as they entered the building, Chi Yu felt at least a dozen people walking over. From their aura, they seemed to be ordinary people. But they were very tall, and most of them were women. Jida whispered into Chi Yu's ear, "Master, wait a moment. I'll report to the higher-ups. Although there's no problem with your identity, the Yellow Flame Soul headquarters still has to." Chi Yu nodded and said, "Go, I understand. I'll wait for you here." Jida agreed and hurried away. Chi Yu's spiritual power followed him all the way to a freight elevator in the corner of the building's lobby before he retracted it. At this moment, Chi Yu suddenly heard some faint voices. "Wow, this person is so cool. Look at his good figure. Although he's a little ordinary, I think he must be our company's new model. He's so handsome. Such a handsome guy, don't you guys steal him from me. But why haven't I heard of him before? Look, isn't he about 1.95 meters tall? He's close to 2 meters. His shoulders are really wide, and he even dyed his hair white. He's so handsome with his outfit. It seems that a figure is more important than a face. Hey, look, his eyes are actually light red. Could it be a new type of contact lens? It's really special, I'm going to buy it." Listening to these voices, Chi Yu was surprised to find that these people were actually talking about him. They even stopped moving forward. He strengthened his spiritual power to connect with the plants around him. Through the origin of nature, he could observe his surroundings more clearly in his mind. He found that most of these girls were under 20 years old, and they were at least 1.75 meters tall. Each of them had a slim figure, and there was a faint fragrance of cosmetics on their bodies. From the feeling he got from the plants, they should be beauties. And there were as many as 10 of them. This was indeed the central business district of the capital. There were so many beauties at once. It was a pity that Chi Yu was most disconnected from beauties. He didn't want to provoke them. Using his spiritual power, he walked to the side and stood there. Those girls didn't seem to want to let him go. A bold girl took the initiative to walk towards Chi Yu. Feeling the approaching atmosphere, Chi Yu couldn't help but frown. "Hello, are you a new colleague of our company?" The girl's voice was very pleasant. It seemed that she was the one who was talking about him the most enthusiastically. Chi Yu said coldly, "No. The young girl was stunned. Chi-Yu's icy cold voice actually caused her body to tremble in this season that had just entered autumn. Isn't that so? How could it be? I can tell you are a model at first glance, and the building is the headquarters of our new Silk Road Model Company. I didn't know that a big guy like you would be shy. The girl forced a smile and said to Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu thought, these girls actually think of me as a model. What is this? How could the headquarters of Yan Huang's soul be located in such a place? He didn't pay any more attention to the girl. He simply stood there and didn't say a word. The girl was rebuffed. Hearing the laughter of her sisters behind her, she couldn't help but feel indignant. Why are you so arrogant? Even if you are a famous model, you don't have to be so arrogant. I don't care. With that, she turned around and walked towards Chong Bao and her friends. At this time, a man came out of the elevator and shouted, I say, beauties, why are you still here? Hurry up and get in the car. Don't you know that we don't have much time to prepare for the performance? The man looked to be in his 30s. He was about 1.8 meters tall. If he stood among ordinary people, he wouldn't be short. But compared to the beauties around him, he was a little short. The girl who talked to Chi-Yu before said angrily, Manager Lee, your new male model is really arrogant. I took the initiative to talk to him, but he ignored me. Manager Lee was stunned for a moment and said, a new man? I haven't recruited anyone recently. Are you sure? While saying that, he subconsciously followed the eyes of the beauties and looked in the direction of Chi-Yu. The moment his gaze landed on Chi-Yu, Chi-Yu's body trembled. His whole body suddenly shook. Oh my God! What a perfect figure! Chi-Yu was getting impatient as he listened to other people's judgments about him. However, he didn't bring his phone. It was not easy to find Jida, so he could only wait here. But the expression on his face had become even colder. Hello, sir. Are you here to apply for a job in our new Silk Road Model Company? Manager Lee ran in front of Chi-Yu and asked excitedly. In his excitement, he was even immune to the coldness exuding from Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu coldly replied, I've already said it once before, no. Please don't disturb me, thank you. Manager Lee rubbed his hands. He hadn't been so nervous for a long time. His intuition clearly told him that if the man in front of him was willing to come to New Silk Road, it would definitely be a great thing for the company. With such a figure and temperament, he would definitely be a supermodel in the world. Sir, it's like this. New Silk Road is the largest model company in the country. With your figure and temperament, it would be a pity if you don't become a model. If you are willing, our company can provide you with the most favorable conditions. Based on your own qualifications, you can definitely participate in the international model competition. I wonder if you're interested? The impatience in Chi-Yu's heart deepened as he listened to the first half of the sentence. However, when he heard the last part about being able to participate in the international model competition, his heart suddenly moved. His expression softened a little as he said, Does that mean that your company will often go overseas? I don't know how often you go to Italy and Greece. I like those two countries very much. Manager Lee said proudly, Of course, Italy's Milan is a famous fashion city. As a pioneer in the domestic modeling industry, we often go there. As for Greece, although we don't go there often, we still have a chance to go there once or twice a year. If you are willing to join our company, I can give you the opportunity to go to Greece and Italy. Chi-Yu thought for a while and said, Okay, but I have to think about it. Can you give me your business card? If I think about it, I will call you. Manager Lee's face showed a trace of disappointment, but he didn't know why. Standing in front of this man, he didn't dare to continue. The excitement had passed, but the pressure from Chi-Yu's body had already made him feel a little uncomfortable. He subconsciously took out his business card from his pocket and handed it to Chi-Yu. He smiled and said, Then it's a deal. I haven't asked for your name, sir. At this time, Chi-Yu just felt Jida's aura. He walked to the freight elevator and said, Chi-Yu. Bosley watched as Chi-Yu walked together with Jida, who was even taller than him. He subconsciously frowned and said, Chi-Yu, I've never heard of this name before. However, he and his friend both have such good figures. I really don't know what those fellows are doing looking for suitable models every day. Well, girls, we have to hurry. Haven't you seen a handsome guy? Look at you guys, your eyes are all green. Jida's hearing was also good. He looked at the beauties in the hall and said with a smile, Master, this is the first time I found out that your charm is so strong. Why was that guy looking for you? Chi-Yu said, Isn't this the headquarters of your Yellow Flame Soul group? Why is there a model company here? Jida said, Master, you misunderstood. This is our headquarters. But our headquarters is underground, and the ground is a standard office building. This new Silk Road Model Company is really famous. I think they must have taken a fancy to Master's figure. But Master, I've never seen you wear black before. To be honest, you look really cool in this. No wonder those beauties are interested in you. Chi-Yu said impatiently, Hurry up and leave. I'm not here to chat with you. What do those women have to do with me? As for clothes, from today on, my clothes will only be black. Yes, his clothes would only be black. In order to mourn Klinsmann, the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King, and the spiritual pet treasure Wen Ting was sleeping in his body. After entering the freight elevator, Jida didn't directly start the elevator. After the elevator door closed, he gently patted Da's left metal arm. At the same time, the watch on his right wrist lit up. A faint light was emitted, and with a beeping sound, the metal wall quietly moved to the side, revealing a door. Chapter 213. Behind the door was a staircase that led downwards. After descending about a dozen stairs, the two of them came to an open space. Chi-Yu could clearly feel that the surroundings were all made of alloy. Moreover, it was a super alloy with excellent hardness and ductility. Even with the strength of his spiritual power, it was extremely difficult for him to probe through the alloy above. Even if an atomic bomb exploded outside, as long as it was not at the front, the inside would not be affected too much. Jida said, Master, this is the only door to the headquarters. You can feel it, right? Above here, there is a 3-meter-thick super alloy. We will take the elevator down soon. After about 30 meters, we will reach the real headquarters. In this distance of 30 meters, almost all of our country's current high technology is used. The defense and security capabilities are extremely strong. As a national secret organization, the Yellow Flame Soul not only engaged in many special operations, but at the same time, it was also the country's secret information gathering department. Among them, there were top-notch high-level talents. That was why the defense facilities were so abnormal. After all, those who could come here were the most important talents of the country. The elevator that Jida mentioned was actually the entire place where they were standing. With a low mechanical sound, this room-like place slowly sank into the ground. It was a full 20 square meters of area. For such a huge alloy room to rise or sink into the ground, the amount of energy needed was enormous. Jida was still fiddling with his watch. Obviously, it was the device that controlled the elevator. Chi-Yu did not ask much. Just like some secrets that he did not want others to know, he also did not want to know too much. When the country needed him, he was willing to rush to the front. But during normal times, he hoped to live a peaceful life. Sure enough, just like what Jida said, the elevator stopped after descending for about 30 meters. The smooth wall in front of them actually split open. Not even a sound was made. Jida led Chi-Yu directly in. But his spiritual power still told him that there were at least dozens of life forms in this place. Moreover, each life form had its own characteristic. Some had extremely strong spiritual power, while others had very strong physical bodies. Although the energy fluctuations were different, they were obviously not ordinary people. Thinking of the Yellow Flame Soul experts that he had seen before, Chi-Yu could not help but deepen his understanding of this department. although these people were still lacking compared to the Zodiac Guardian warriors. However, it was not easy for the country to have so many experts. Moreover, these people belonged to the Yen Huang Soul realm. Although they were not as strong as the Zodiac Guardian God warriors in terms of battle prowess, their specializations were far superior. Jida brought Chiyu to a meeting room that was made of metal. At that moment, there were already 2 people in the meeting room. One of them was a heavenly soul expert that Chiyu was very familiar with. The other one was the plant soul that he hadn't seen for a long time. As soon as the plant saw Chiyu, she immediately pounced on him excitedly. In terms of age, she was actually only a few years younger than Chiyu. Ever since the last mission in the Sun Nation, she had developed a special sense of familiarity with Chiyu. When she heard that Chiyu had specially come to see her today, the little girl was filled with surprise. Chiyu subconsciously welcomed the plant soul's embrace, and a faint smile appeared on his cold face. He rejected the communication device that Jida had offered him and directly used his own spiritual power to communicate with the plant soul. The current Chiyu was no longer the weak Kirin who had gone to the Sun Nation. With the fluctuations of his spiritual power, he could directly know what the plant soul was thinking. Of course, the premise was that the plant soul did not hide anything from him and was willing to communicate with him mentally. Chiyu, who had become the source of nature, made the plant feel even more intimate. It was a feeling that could not be described with words. She fell into Chiyu's embrace, as if she had fallen into nature. His gentle and intimate gaze nourished her body. The heavenly soul looked at Chiyu in shock. After not seeing him for a period of time, not only had Chiyu's appearance changed, but the aura that he exuded had also changed drastically. "Brothers Chiyu said, "It's nothing. It's just a small matter. This time, I came to help the plant soul sister cure her throat. Let's do it here. Big brother Heavenly Soul, I have to trouble you to tell the others not to let anyone disturb me while I'm treating the plant soul sister. Is that okay?" Tian Shintu and Jida looked at each other. They were even more shocked. The plant soul had an extremely important position in the Yen Huang Soul. The Yen Huang Soul had invited many experts to treat her throat, but in the end, they did not succeed. He knew about Chiyu's strength, but did he have a stronger healing ability than ordinary people? It was really hard to believe. However, after thinking for a short while, the heavenly soul decided to let Chiyu try. After all, he sincerely hoped that the plant soul could recover. He immediately agreed and walked out of the conference room with Jida. He also activated the defense system outside. Chiyu held the plant soul's little hand and let her sit in front of him. The plant soul's senses were much more sensitive than ordinary people. Although Chiyu did not look any different on the surface, she immediately felt the changes in Chiyu's body. "Big brother, your eyes, what's wrong with your eyes?" Chiyu smiled and said, "It's nothing. I just can't see for the time being. It's okay." The plant soul covered her little mouth and looked at him in shock. "Big brother wants your eyes. Big brother is so pitiful. Can't you see?" Chiyu smiled and shook his head. "Although I can't see with my eyes, I still have my heart. Some things, when felt with my heart, are far more real than using my eyes to see. I'm sorry, little sister plant soul. It has been a while since I promised you that I would help you regain your ability to speak. However, I was delayed by some things, so I only came to find you now. Can you forgive Big Brother?" The plant soul nodded quickly and said obediently, "Big Brother must have a lot of things to settle. That's why you came late. However, I really miss Big Brother." If those in the world who had fought with plant souls before heard her threat through her spiritual power, their eyes would probably pop out of their sockets. One had to know. In this world, the plant soul could be linked to the god of death. Half of the missions she carried out were annihilated. It could be said that the plant witch who could not speak and had a cold personality had always been one of the trump cards of the Yanhuang Republic. Chiyu smiled faintly and replied, "I missed you too. Big Brother can't stay for too long. Let's start now. Big brother will try his best to cure your throat. In the future, my cute little plant sister will be able to speak." The plant soul's eyes revealed a trace of excitement. She did not know why. Although she knew that her throat was difficult to cure, she was full of confidence in Chi-Yu. Taking a deep breath, Chi-Yu held the plant soul's little hand. His dim red eyes were calm without a trace of emotion. Green light gradually seeped out of his body. There were no plants here. He could not use the power of the source of nature to obtain more energy, so he could only use the power of his origin to help the plant soul. This kind of treatment undoubtedly consumed a lot of energy, but Chi-Yu did not hold back at all. The plant soul widened its eyes in astonishment as it clearly sensed the energy contained in the green light spots. In a sense, the plant soul was astonished. Her ability was very similar to Chi-Yu's source of nature. However, at this time, feeling the fluctuation of the natural energy in Chi-Yu's body, the plant soul was shocked to find that she was like a part of Chi-Yu, as if she could fuse with him at any time. The Chi-Yu in front of her was like her father. That feeling of familiarity, along with the energy of the same origin, instantly enveloped her delicate body. Chi-Yu's expression became calm, and the energy of the source of nature directly enveloped the plant soul's petite body. Just like what the plant soul felt, he also felt very familiar. The plant soul brought him. It was an extremely pure natural energy. Compared to his own natural energy, there was still a huge gap in purity. However, her natural energy was very pure, just like the icy aura that was released from Snow Girl's body. The degree of energy concentration was very high, and under the effect of his own source of nature, the natural energy in her body was actually absorbing the aura that he released and expanding rapidly. What a good plant body, Chi-Yu could not help but exclaim in his heart. With him, the plant soul would put all its effort into exploring natural energy. Although his natural energy was much stronger than hers, in terms of using natural energy, he was not as good as the little girl in front of him. With a smile, a faint light flashed in Chi-Yu's eyes. The natural energy in his hand did not decrease because of the plant soul's absorption, but instead became more powerful. The huge energy fluctuation caused the plant soul's delicate body to turn completely green. At this moment, she also completely opened up her body and every cell in front of Chi-Yu, not hiding anything or holding anything back. Chi-Yu's source of nature directly entered her body under the effect of his mental strength. Not only could he clearly feel the energy fluctuation of the source of nature in her body, but he could also feel the cultivation method of the plant soul through his mental strength. Feeling the cultivation method of the plant soul was very beneficial to Chi-Yu. After all, he had always been purely absorbing the energy brought by the source of nature, and then transforming it into his own natural energy. When he used the source of nature, it only played a supporting role. To the plant soul, natural energy was not everything to her. Hence, her cultivation method could be said to be the cultivation method of nature energy. The fact that she was able to cultivate to such a level without the help of the origin of nature showed that her cultivation method was like adding wings to a tiger for Chi-Yu. As the saying goes, good will always be rewarded. Chi-Yu, who originally came for treatment, had unwillingly obtained the cultivation method of nature energy that he needed the most at this stage. The cultivation method of the plant soul was very unique. She did not circulate her own energy according to a certain meridian like ordinary cultivation method. For example, Chi-Yu cultivated the 8 extraordinary meridians of the ascending cloud technique. In her cultivation method, even the smallest capillary in her body was like the roots of a plant, all the way to the veins of a leaf. Every cell was driven by the meridians and blood vessels that densely covered her body, and operated according to the nutrient circulation method of the plant soul. Although she was a human, when she cultivated, she could turn herself into a plant and have the aura of a plant. She could resonate with the plants in nature to a certain extent. Thus, through the pores all over her body, she could absorb the natural energy in the air. This kind of absorption method was undoubtedly very slow, and it had a lot to do with the surrounding environment. The more plants there were around, the more beneficial it was for her cultivation. At this moment, the cultivation method in her body that was like the veins of a leaf was rapidly absorbing the natural energy that Chi-Yu transmitted over. This cultivation method that used all the meridians in her body was extremely fast in the process of absorbing energy. Because of this, although the plant soul was not old, its strength was already very strong in the history of Yan Huang souls. It was very difficult for Chi-Yu to cultivate using the plant soul method. After all, he already had the ascending cloud technique and Kiran's ascending cloud technique. If he changed to the plant soul, it would be changing the way his energy circulated. Although the meridians and blood vessels in his body had been improved by the source of nature, he was still a human after all. Moreover, the amount of energy in his body was far greater than that of a plant soul. Therefore, if there was a problem during cultivation, it would be a devastating blow to Chi-Yu. Therefore, although he had memorized the cultivation method of the plant soul, he could only try it carefully in his future cultivation. Chi-Yu did not purposely heal the plant soul's throat. He simply transferred his natural energy into her body without any reservation. Originally, he wanted to use the characteristics of the source of nature and Kiran's marrow washing and tendon changing technique to help the plant soul heal. However, now that he had obtained the cultivation method of natural energy from her, Chi-Yu wanted to give the plant soul some compensation, and the huge amount of natural energy in her body was obviously the best way to make up for it. Through the detection of spiritual power, when Chi-Yu's natural energy had just completely enveloped the plant soul's body, she already understood why the experts could not treat the plant soul. If the plant soul was still young, it should have been possible to treat it. However, as her special cultivation method made her stronger and stronger, although she was still a human now, the way the bloodline in her body worked was too different from that of an ordinary person. How could treating a plant soul with the same method as treating a human achieve the desired effect? Now that it was Chi-Yu's turn to treat the plant soul, he used his natural energy to nourish the plant soul's body, and the healing process became much simpler. The plant soul's throat was innately unable to speak, which meant that she had a congenital defect from the moment she was born. The source of nature's energy was the best energy to fix this defect. Therefore, she knew that as long as she transferred her energy to the plant soul, her body would start to heal on its own. She did not need to waste any effort at all. Chi-Yu's natural energy was vast. Although she had not recovered to her peak state, as the source of nature, she could be said to be the queen of nature. Her current energy was already an astronomical figure for the plant soul. As she continued to absorb, the plant soul's body started to change. Meanwhile, after the huge amount of natural energy entered her body, she lost all sense of the outside world. He lost all sense of the outside world, and was completely bathed in that warm energy. The plant soul was originally less than 1.6 meters tall, but as the natural energy nourished her body, her petite body started to grow again. As she sat in front of Chi-Yu, her limbs became slender, and her youthful face gradually matured. She no longer looked like a child, but a real young lady. Moreover, she was a stunning young lady. Her delicate face, which was filled with the aura of nature, exuded an amiable aura. Her originally petite body was currently developing into a slender and long body. The natural energy in Chi-Yu's body was circulating slowly. Of course, he would not repeat the mistake he made with Yumel. When circulating the natural energy, the thundercloud force in his body became the strongest guardian. 4 types of thundercloud force spread out from his body at the same time. They covered the entire room invisibly. If there were any abnormal changes, these energies would be activated immediately. With the previous lesson, no matter what he did, even Chi-Yu became more cautious, even though he knew that there was no way there would be any danger. He would do the same, because Yumo had already told him that in this world, no one could be absolutely trusted, and no one was absolutely safe. As long as he was careful, he could filter out all dangers. The energy transfer lasted for a full hour. When Chiyu felt that the plant soul's body had been filled with a huge amount of natural energy, he stopped the energy transfer. He understood the principle of going too far was as bad as not going far enough. Given the plant soul's current situation, after obtaining the energy from the source of nature, it was not like other people who only changed their bodies. As the plant soul's controller, its strength had more than doubled. It slowly stopped the natural energy transfer. Feeling the changes in the plant soul's body and the flaws that had been completely repaired, Chiyu smiled faintly. He suddenly realized that when he helped others, his gloomy mood would be alleviated to a certain extent. Perhaps this was the benefit of doing a good deed. At least, it was beneficial to his heart. As the natural energy transfer stopped, the plant's soul gradually woke up from the warm ocean. She was surprised to find that her body had undergone earth-shattering changes. Her body was filled with a huge amount of natural energy, and she did not know how much stronger she was than before. It was not just a feeling of being filled with power. Even her senses had become much stronger than before. One must know that it was extremely important for her to sense the existence of plants. She subconsciously raised her right hand and waved it gently. Instantly, a vine rushed out at an astonishing speed. As it had just obtained such a huge amount of energy, the plant's soul could not control it for a moment. The vine grew rapidly and filled the entire room in the blink of an eye. The aura of the plant filled the metal room with vitality. The appearance of the plant also made Chiyu feel refreshed. Although the vine grew with the support of the plant soul's energy, as the source of nature, he could still see everything in front of him through the vine. Due to the power of the plant soul and the natural energy in the room, Chiyu could see everything very clearly with his mind's eye this time. The plant spirit's clothes were completely torn, especially in front of her chest. The original B cup had expanded to at least a D cup, and the thin material was no longer enough to cover it. In addition to the slender jade legs that were exposed, the exposed skin on her arms, and the huge vines that surrounded her body, she looked like a princess of nature, full of special attractiveness. Plant soul sister, don't you need to change your clothes? After growing up, although the plant soul had lost its original childishness, she had definitely become a beauty. Moreover, she was a beauty that made Chiyu feel extremely close to her. Although his heart had already been frozen because of the incident with Yumao, the fact that the beauty was so exposed in front of him, coupled with the fact that this was a plant soul that he treated as his younger sister, still made him feel a little strange. Only then did the plant soul realize her situation. She let out a soft cry, and the surrounding vines quickly wrapped her delicate body. Brother, you're so naughty. Didn't you say that you can't see? The plant soul was stunned as soon as she said that. That was because this time their communication was not on a spiritual level. Yes, she could speak. The plant soul was stunned, and her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. She looked at Chiyu in a daze, and the surrounding vines were trembling slightly with her delicate body. Brother, I can speak. A knowing smile appeared on Chiyu's face. Congratulations, plant spirit sister. It's a pity that I can't truly see your current appearance. What I saw earlier was only possible through the vine you created. As long as you retract it into your body, I won't be able to see anything. The plant soul blushed. At this moment, she did not care about being shy anymore. It had been 18 years. She finally had the ability to speak. That kind of joy was something that normal people could not understand. She quickly retracted the vine and dashed into Chi-Yu's arms like a bird flying into the woods. She hugged him and shouted and jumped excitedly. Her slender and voluptuous body kept rubbing against Chi-Yu's body. Chi-Yu was very happy when he felt the plant soul's excitement. However, The stimulation that the plant's soul brought to his body was a little too much. Even though his heart was like dead water, he still had a physiological reaction. When the plant soul's excitement calmed down, Chi-Yu quickly took out a piece of his clothes from the Kirin pearl and covered her delicate body. "Brother, how can I thank you?" The plant soul looked at Chi-Yu with tears in her eyes. At that moment, Chi-Yu's face was a little pale because he had released a large amount of nature energy. The plant soul could feel the deathly still aura on his body more clearly. Since they had the same source of nature energy, the Nahua soul could sense Chi-Yu more clearly than the heavenly soul. She knew that something unusual must have happened to her brother. Chi-Yu smiled. "It's only right for a brother to help his little sister. Look at you now, excited appearance, listen to your clear voice. This is the best way to thank me. Cherish everything you have now. I believe that you will definitely become stronger in the future." The plant soul looked at Chi-Yu quietly. Gentle nature energy surrounded Chi-Yu's body and flowed into him. It wasn't just nature energy, it also contained the plant soul's kindness and gratitude towards Chi-Yu. "Brother, thank you. Thank you so much. From now on, you are my family." As she spoke, the plant soul leaped into Chi-Yu's arms and hugged him tightly. There was no lust in that hug. Instead, it was a hug filled with affection. Just like Chi-Yu, she was also an orphan. At that moment, she was as happy as if she had found her brother in this vast world. A sense of satisfaction rose in Chi-Yu's heart as he gently stroked the plant soul's long hair. He knew that his trip this time had not been in vain. "Little plant spirit sister, can you tell me, how did you make that vine grow from your hand just now? You should have sensed it as well. I also have nature energy on me, but it's impossible for me to conjure plants out of thin air like you. Is this your special ability?" Chi-Yu asked curiously. The plant soul giggled and said, "Silly brother, how could that be? Your nature energy is much stronger than mine. Moreover, the nature aura that you give off is the aura of a king. How could I do something that even you can't? Actually, the secret is very simple." As she spoke, she opened her right palm in front of Chi-Yu. After she did this, she remembered that Chi-Yu was blind. She quickly grabbed his hand and stroked it gently on her right palm. The plant soul's little hand was not only soft but also very smooth. As soon as he touched her hand, Chi-Yu came to a sudden realization. He blurted out, "Seeds." The plant soul nodded and smiled as she hooked Chi-Yu's arm. She said, "That's right, Seeds. I have participated in many yellow flame soul missions. Under many circumstances, it is impossible for me to have plants around me. Without plants, it is very difficult for me to use my abilities. Of course, I can become stronger in a forest or a place with many plants. However, it is impossible for me to not be able to use my abilities without plants. Therefore, seeds are extremely necessary. The nature energy that we have can completely help plants grow at an alarming rate. In that case, seeds can also work. Therefore, I always carry many kinds of seeds with me. There are poisonous ones, non-poisonous ones, tough ones, and so on." Chi-Yu slapped his forehead. That was really a wake-up call. Yes, if he did not have plants around him, could he not make plants himself? How much space could seeds take up? As long as he had seeds with him, he could make plants grow when he needed them. He could use them as his eyes and weapons. "Thank you, Sister Plant Soul. You have shown me a new field. To be honest, after obtaining the nature energy, I have never known how to use it." Chi-Yu had already grasped something in his heart. He suddenly thought that under certain circumstances, all kinds of energy could be fused with each other. At the same time, they could also support each other. Although his Kirin's ability was far from the nature source, if he could support it well, he would definitely be able to increase his strength to another level. He would not be limited to Kirin's ability. Since the heavens had given him the nature source, he must make full use of it. Although it did not say how to use this ability, he knew that as long as he worked hard, he would definitely be able to find a way to use it. Thinking of this, the light in Chi Yu's eyes became even brighter. At this moment, the communication device in the room rang. "Master, are you all right?" It was Jida's voice. It turned out that he had felt that the energy fluctuations in the room were too frequent, and there were also some special fluctuations that caused the external defense energy of the metal room to be greatly impacted. Therefore, he had come to ask. Chiyu said, "I'm fine. You can come in." When Jida and the Heavenly Soul walked in from the outside, they could not help but widen their eyes when they saw the fully matured plant soul. Jida was dumbfounded. "Oh my God! Sister Plant Soul, did you take hormones? How did you become like this?" The plant soul giggled and said, "You're the one who took hormones. Can taking hormones make your body grow perfectly? I'm afraid there is no such technology in the world." The Heavenly Soul asked, "Then what's going on?" Chapter 214. Are you cold? The coldest part is yet to come. Chiyu chuckled as his body suddenly floated forward, sticking close to Yen Xiaoi's back. Immediately after, Yen Xiaoi felt a powerful force as his body flew uncontrollably out of the cave like a cannonball. With a plop, he fell into the frozen spring. Due to the shock of his pet, treasure Denglong, he let out a miserable shriek before it abruptly stopped. Chiyu's body emitted a cold aura. "Alright, do you want me to do it, or do you want to jump down yourself?" Hu Guang said, "Boss, what's down there?" Chiyu smiled and said, "The frozen spring." "Are you trying to freeze us to death?" "I won't go even if you beat me to death," Hu Guang said firmly. Chiyu said calmly, but with a hint of evil, "I won't go even if I beat you to death? Does that mean I'll go if I can't kill you? You can go down now." An enormous energy aura surged forth without warning. It was impossible to dodge in this narrow ice cave. Although Hu Guang was not weak, he was still far from Chiyu's. In the blink of an eye, Hu Guang's body had already been flung away by Chiyu's enormous energy, causing him to let out a miserable cry. Chiyu's aura turned to the other Zodiac warriors. In fact, everyone knew that he would never harm them, but the temperature was too low. If they stayed in the water, wouldn't they be frozen? Ming Ming looked at Chiyu and said, "I'll go down myself." Of course, she had to support her husband. Hence, she was the first to jump down. With Ming Ming leading the way, Shang Bing and the plant soul also jumped down. Hummer took a deep breath and said, "I'll go down myself too. Are we men not as good as these girls?" Perhaps they were provoked by his words, but without waiting for Chiyu to waste any more effort, the Zodiac Guardian God warriors had already drilled out of the cave and jumped into the incomparably cold frozen spring. 10 minutes passed quickly. Chiyu didn't even look at the frozen spring. He just waited quietly at the entrance of the cave. Every time a member of the Zodiac squad slid down, he would pat them with his palm. A warm natural energy filled their hearts, and in the next moment, their bodies were sent into the frozen spring by Chiyu. Ryua was the last to come down. When she came down, there was still no sound from the frozen spring. "There's no one up there, Chiyu. What kind of place is this?" Ryua asked curiously. Chiyu said, "It's a very good place to train. The previous month was actually to prepare for today. Only when everyone's body strength reaches a certain level, then it's suitable to come here and absorb the essence of heaven and earth. Alright, you should go down too. Although it's very cold, you should be able to feel that the energy molecules here are very pure, and they don't have any attribute. The cold can't cover the spirituality of the essence of heaven and earth." Ryua nodded and was the last to jump into the frozen spring. Ryua went down, and Chiyu also followed her out of the cave. However, his body didn't fall down, but floated in the air. Ever since he left the ancient behemoth era, the black and white dragons have been staying here to train. The secret of the energy here was also told to him by the black and white dragons. Originally, when Chiyu chose to camp next to the Kunlun Mountains for training, he wanted to let the ninjas train in this complicated and difficult environment. But when he heard the black and white dragons talk about the truth of the energy in the frozen spring, he immediately had other ideas. After a few days of contemplation, he had come up with an absolutely feasible solution. Until today, when he felt that the bodies of the members of the 12 Zodiac squad were strong enough to handle all of this, he brought them here. Floating above the frozen spring, Chi-Yu could clearly see that every member of the 12 Zodiac squad that entered the frozen spring was now quietly floating on the surface of the frozen lake. Their faces had long been frozen to a pale green color. It should be known that although the water here had not frozen, the temperature was much lower than that of ice. Under the circumstances where they were not prepared and had used up a lot of energy to climb the mountain, there were only a few Zodiac Guardian God warriors that were at least 5 cloud level and above. However, in order to use all of their strength to resist the surrounding cold, they all floated there with ashen faces. No one said a word. Except for Ryue and Ming Ming, who looked at Chi-Yu with no change of expression, the others had a somewhat pleading look on their faces. Chi-Yu did not pay attention to them. Floating in the air, his spiritual force and the thundercloud force moved at the same time. First, a green light illuminated the dark space, followed by purple, red, and blue lights. Especially the blue light, in this place full of water energy molecules, it could better display its effect, allowing Chi-Yu to mobilize the water thundercloud force with greater ease. Faint green light spots appeared on the surface of Chi-Yu's body, condensing into green light balls that floated around his body. In about 5 minutes, Chi-Yu had already released more than 2/3 of the nature energy in his body. Using his spiritual force to control the light balls around his body, each light ball formed by the nature energy was pulled by an invisible thread formed by his spiritual force. The faint green light made Chi-Yu look a little strange. "Come!" Chi-Yu suddenly shouted. The 4-colored thundercloud force that he emitted earlier suddenly became stronger, and the light balls formed by the nature energy looked like they were floating in a huge 4-colored ocean. Kirin's shadow rose from behind him. Ink Kirin's body stepped on the 4-colored auspicious cloud, and the black and silver horn on his head rose high, bursting with dazzling light. In an instant, Kirin's aura filled the entire cave. Chi-Yu's deep voice resounded throughout the entire space, with the nature energy as the guide, with Kirin's bloodline as the source, the ancient Kirin's aura. Explode in the tremor of life. His eyes, which had turned red due to his blindness, instantly turned bright silver, and Kirin's original energy suddenly became stronger, being released from his body without reservation. The huge energy aura constantly changed in the air, and the light balls formed by the nature energy began to condense with Chi-Yu's own energy. Kirin's energy was like a ribbon connecting them, floating downwards. Every light ball formed by the nature energy found a person in the water, and the bodies of the members of the 12 Zodiac teams in the water were immediately dyed green. In the next moment, the silver light in Chi-Yu's eyes became even stronger, and the silver light in his left eye gradually turned black. One black and one silver, looking full of an evil aura. At this moment, a huge amount of energy was completely released. The release of Kirin's original energy caused Chi-Yu's face to look a little pale. After a pause, Chi-Yu raised his right arm, and 5 rays of blood-red light burst out from the fingers of his right hand at the same time. The blood quickly condensed in the air, forming a blood-red light ball. The light ball floated in front of Chi-Yu's chest, facing the Kirin pearl. Lin Bing Doja Quan Quan formation, with Kirin's blood as the source, the ancient Kirin's power. I summon you in the name of Ink Kirin. Release Kirin's blood, and bless all the creatures in front of you. Kirin's energy, which was connected to more than 100 people below, had a touch of silver light. The blood pearl condensed in front of Chi-Yu began to melt, and strands of blood-red light were transmitted into each person's body through those threads. At this moment, everyone in the water trembled violently, as if they were enduring some kind of great pain. the water surface of the frozen spring also fluctuated rapidly, as if it was boiling. Chi Yu's expression became somewhat solemn. He calmly looked at everything below and shouted, "Kiran's blessing for thundercloud force." The 4 colors of thundercloud force spread out in all directions at the same time. Everyone received the support of Kiran's thundercloud force according to their different attribute. Under the effect of Kiran's thundercloud force, the pure energy contained in the frozen spring was also triggered. A faint layer of water mist rose from the boiling water surface and merged with everyone's body. During the process of the water mist merging, it also brought a large amount of energy into their bodies. Under the effect of the nature energy released by Chi Yu and Kiran's origin energy, everyone's body quickly absorbed the foreign energy and quickly transformed it into something that belonged to them. What Chi Yu wanted to do was very simple. He wanted to use his own energy as a medium to help the members of the 12 Zodiac absorb the huge amount of energy that had been condensed here for many years. Without the origin of nature, it would have been impossible to achieve this goal. At the same time, without Kiran's origin energy, if his 4 attributes of thundercloud force did not meet everyone's needs in different transformations, it would also have been impossible. At the same time, Chi Yu also displayed one of Kiran's ultimate skills, which was Kiran's assimilation. Kiran's assimilation was a skill that Sagru taught to Chi Yu. Assimilation was one of Kiran's ultimate skills. Although this skill did not have any attack or defense abilities, it could grant one of Kiran's abilities to each creature within its range. As for which ability the space granted, it depended on Kiran's own will. Every Kiran could use Kiran's assimilation. However, just like the life and death domain that Chi Yu used to tame the Bull Demon King, this skill could only be used once in Kiran's life. At this moment, Chi Yu used it. The ability that he granted to everyone present was one of Kiran's origin abilities, Kiran Shintaka. Yes, it was Kiran Shintaka. After learning Kiran's assimilation, Chi Yu was reminded of the Ultralisk companions that the humans of various races had mentioned during the ancient Ultralisk era. It was undoubtedly very difficult and dangerous to obtain an almighty beast partner. However, everything would be much simpler if he had the Qilint's divine descent, which was the Qilint's origin ability. Because of this assimilation, Chi Yu's Kiran's divine descent was reduced by 1. Fortunately, there was only the Bull Demon King in his body now, so Kiran's divine descent could still be used once. It was the first time in the entire history of Kiran to use Kiran's divine descent on such a large scale. Even Emohwa wouldn't dare to do this. After all, Kiran's origin energy could be said to be the foundation of Kiran. Once it was used excessively, the impact on Kiran's body would be immeasurable. However, Chi Yu was different. He was Ink Kiran of the 4 auspicious clouds. Compared to other Kiran, the origin energy that he possessed was not only very strange, but it was also much larger. In order to improve the strength of the 12 Zodiac teams, he decided to do this after much consideration. In the frozen spring, there was a large amount of neutral energy as a backup, which reduced his consumption to a minimum. The large amount of energy was continuously transmitted to the members of the 12 Zodiac teams as their bodies trembled. This time, not only did their bodies undergo a great transformation, but the energy in their bodies was also strengthened in the process of absorbing the energy. As long as one was human, they would be selfish. Chi Yu was no exception. Although he was also promoting the growth of energy, he placed more of his attention on the Zodiac Guardian Warriors during the process of promoting the growth. After all, the Zodiac Guardian Warriors were the foundation. As for the members of the 12 Zodiac teams, the internal energy of the frozen spring began to be transmitted according to Chi Yu's instructions, and it quieted down again. This time, the period of quietness far exceeded Chi Yu's calculations. According to Chi Yu's calculations, he had originally thought that 3 days would be enough. However, by the time all the energy from the frozen spring had been absorbed by himself and the 12 Zodiac teams, A full 7 days had already passed. These 7 days were not only a process of cultivation, but also a process of being reborn. The sun shone brightly on the Kunlun mountain range. The snow-white icebergs reflected the sunlight, making the entire Kunlun mountain range look even purer. Looking back at the Kunlun mountain range behind them, the eyes of everyone in the 12 Zodiac teams were filled with complicated emotions. In this place, they had endured too much pain, but it was also here that they had reached an unprecedented peak. Mo Dandin jumped up and down in high spirit. One moment, she ran to the front of the group, and the next moment, she returned to the back of the group. Seeing that everyone seemed so friendly, the people who watched her running couldn't help but worry for her. What if her super round breasts broke out of her clothes? What kind of scene would that be? It was no wonder that Mo Dan was so excited. After all, when they left the Kunlun mountain range, Mo Dan found that not only did her strength greatly increase, but she also made great progress. From the 3-cloud realm that she had obtained in the previous month, she directly entered the 5-cloud realm. The same thing happened to Guanjing, who also reached the 5-cloud realm. Although Vol and Yen Xiaoi were also at the 5-cloud realm, their strength was already close to the 6-cloud realm. Without a doubt, the natural energy was the most abundant. The energy that had been accumulated in the frozen spring for many years was swept away by them, so it was normal for such a big change to occur. Among the Zodiac warriors, the one who changed the least was Ryuan. She did not have any breakthrough and was still at the 7-cloud realm, but now she was infinitely close to the 8-cloud realm. One must know that the last 3 clouds of the Zodiac Guardian warriors were the hardest to advance. Other than Vol, Yen Xiaoi, Mo Dan, and Guanjing, the other 8 Zodiac Guardian warriors had all reached the 6-cloud realm and above. Other than Changjie, who joined the Zodiac Guardian warriors later and was at the 6-cloud realm, the other 7 were all at the 7-cloud realm, just to different degrees. Just like everyone else, Chi Yu finally reached the 7-cloud realm under the influence of the frozen spring's energy. However, although he had gained a lot from the 7 days of cultivation, he had also paid a huge price. When the cultivation ended, he almost fainted due to the excessive consumption of nature energy and Kirin's origin energy. He insisted on telling everyone their next destination before entering his own cultivation. The black and white dragons followed them out of the snow mountain. After all, Chi Yu did not go too far. Although the energy of the frozen spring had been completely drained under his guidance, the frozen spring still existed. With the divine power of Kunlun's illusion below as the foundation, the energy in the frozen spring would condense again. Right now, Chi Yu was sitting on the back of the black dragon. Others might not know the path of the ancient beasts, but the white dragon and the black dragon did. They were now leading the way, and their destination was the headquarters of the Earth Tribe's village. After more than a month of training, more than 100 members of the 12 Zodiacs, including Shangbing, Jida, and the Plant Soul, had been reborn. According to Chi Yu's plan, they needed to start training on a real battlefield. Under the baptism of blood and fire, they could grow further, and also better use the thundercloud force that they had improved, to achieve the combat power corresponding to their realm. Among the 12 Zodiac Guardian God warriors, there were always 4 of them by the Black Dragon's side to protect Chi Yu. The training in the Kunlun Mountains had made the 12 Zodiac Guardian God warriors work very well together. At this time, although the black and white dragons were at the front, the 12 Zodiac Guardian God warriors were moving forward in a semi-encirclement. There were 4 teams on the left and right and 4 teams behind them. The members of the teams on the periphery were always on high alert. Since the continent was covered by the primeval forest during the era of the ancient beasts, the Wood-type Shin family members took the initiative to take on the task of scouting the periphery. Under the improvement of Chi Yu's source of nature, their perception of plants was many times stronger than before. As long as someone came within a kilometer of them, they would be alerted. It had been 5 days since they left the Kunlun Mountains, but Chi Yu was still in the state of training. Everyone could often see a faint green light emitting from Chi Yu's body, and the energy particles around him were much stronger than in other places. Snow Girl asked the Black Dragon, "Big brother, how far are we from the earthly race's headquarters?" The Black Dragon thought for a moment and said, "If we keep going like this, it will take about 10 days. It's a pity that Chi Yu is now in the middle of training. Otherwise, with the size of the White Dragon and I, we can definitely fly with you more than 100 people. In that case, we can reach the destination in at most 3 or 4 days." Chi Yu was currently mainly absorbing natural energy, and the effect of absorbing it on the ground and in the air was completely different. In order to recover as soon as possible, everyone chose to travel on the ground. Speaking up to this point, the Black Dragon's purple eyes suddenly lit up. "Hey, it seems like the aura of the ancient beast." Everyone stopped for a moment. His perception was naturally much stronger than the Shen family members. Looking at the serious light in the Black Dragon's eyes, the Zodiac Guardian warriors subconsciously surrounded Chi Yu, and each team also maintained a battle formation, ready to deal with any sudden changes. Sure enough, not long after, everyone felt a strong pressure coming from the air. The pressure came from the sky, and in the distance, the bright sky suddenly darkened. "Oh my God! What is that?" the plant soul screamed. She saw that it was not a dark cloud floating in the distance. It seemed to be some kind of creature. The creatures flying at the front were huge, and they could travel hundreds of meters with a single flap of their wings. There were close to 200 of them. Not only did they give off a strong pressure, but they also blocked the sunlight. The plant soul was shocked by the creature's presence. As they gradually approached, Ryua first saw what they were, because most of the Zodiac Guardian warriors had seen this kind of creature, and it was also this kind of creature that made Chi Yu use the ultimate Kirin arm. Yes, it was the golden-winged eagle, and it was an army of golden-winged eagles. The golden-winged eagle flying in the front had a wingspan of more than 15 meters, and its huge body reflected a golden luster under the sun. The strong aura was mainly released from its body. Behind it were 4 golden-winged eagles with wingspans of about 10 meters. The figures behind them were much smaller, most of them only had wingspans of about 5 to 8 meters. However, with their wings and bodies, they were more than 5 meters wide, which was shocking enough. The number of more than 200 golden-winged eagles looked terrifying. Ryua asked Black Dragon, "Are they coming for us?" Black Dragon shook his head. "Impossible, they are the Wisdom King's clansmen. From the looks of it, this number is at least a third of the Wisdom King's clansmen. In the entire golden-winged eagle clan, there are no more than 15 that have reached the strength of 10,000 years, and there are 5 of them here. Among them, the one at the front, although its strength isn't as strong as the Wisdom King's, it seems to have a cultivation of nearly 20,000 years. In the ancient era of giant beasts, it was definitely the strongest among the strong. The golden-winged eagle clan has a natural restraining effect on reptilian ancient giant beasts like us. With so many of them appearing at once, it's best for us to avoid them." Ryua smiled bitterly. "We have so many people, and you guys are so big, I'm afraid it will be very difficult to avoid them." Black Dragon glanced at the members of the 12 Zodiac squad beside him. Although they were facing a huge pressure from the sky, each of them had a resolute look on their faces. They weren't the slightest bit intimidated by the golden-winged eagles in the sky. Black Dragon said, "If it was a month ago, I would definitely tell you to run away, but now it's not like we don't have the strength to fight. Of course, this can only be done under Chi Yu's leadership. After all, in the battle of the ancient giant beasts, the most important thing is the clash between the strongest of the two sides. I wonder how much Chi Yu's strength has recovered." Ryua nodded. After all, the strength of the 12 Zodiac Guardian warriors has reached the 5-cloud realm, so it's not like they don't have the strength to fight. For example, she was close to the 8-cloud realm, so her overall strength wasn't much weaker than Black Dragon. If she could break through to the 8-cloud realm, Perhaps even Black Dragon wouldn't be her opponent. Smiling faintly, the light in Ryua's eyes brightened. If people don't offend me, then I won't offend them. Everyone, stay where you are. If they don't attack us, then we'll let them know the power of the 12 Zodiac squad. All Zodiac Guardian warriors, return to your squads. Snow Girl, Shangbing, Plant Soul, Jida, I'll leave Chi-Yu to you, please protect him. Jida said, Don't worry, Ryua, as long as we're still breathing, we won't let those feathered beasts hurt Chi-Yu. Ryua nodded, floated up, and returned to her squad. The members of the 12 Zodiac squad began to effectively combine, regrouping according to the 4 major families. Although this disrupted the original order of the squad, it was the only way to maximize their strength. Closer and closer, the golden-winged eagle legion in the sky had clearly noticed the humans and the black and white dragons below. 4 fierce beasts like the golden-winged eagle legion, the Nei pill of the reptilian ancient giant beast was undoubtedly their favorite. If the ancient giant beast was strong enough, a Nei pill could even increase their strength by several hundred years. For beasts like the black and white dragons, who were obviously 10,000 years old, a Nei pill could even increase their strength by more than 1,000 years. For these fierce beasts, humans were negligible. Therefore, as soon as they discovered the black and white dragons, the leading golden-winged eagle legion immediately let out a loud cry. A total of 200 golden-winged eagles immediately spread out in formation, forming an arc as they surrounded the humans below. While flying at a lower altitude, they released their own golden light. At this moment, Chi-Yu, who had been sitting on the back of the black and white dragons, suddenly opened his eyes. A faint smile appeared on his face as he muttered to himself, Beasts have delivered themselves to our doorstep. Speaking of which, we don't need to be polite. It seems that the 12 Zodiac squad has become the Air Force. Chapter 215. Shangbing forcefully punched Chi-Yu's back. You're so annoying. Do you have an ordinary friend like this? Do you hug a friend when you see him? Wet, you're a hooligan, a hateful hooligan. Her voice became choked with sobs as she continuously hammered Chi-Yu. However, her heart had already softened. Come with me, okay? Chi-Yu said somewhat pleadingly. Shangbing's eyes revealed a trace of craftiness. Sure, but I have a condition. What condition? Shangbing said. I can see that you still have a lot of things to do right now. It's fine if you want me to go with you, but you have to promise me that after you finish your own things, you have to chase after me again, and you have to chase after me according to my instructions. Chase after you again? How do you want me to chase after you? Shangbing's words couldn't help but make Chi-Yu curious, but her soft tones still made Chi-Yu feel happy in his heart. Shangbing raised her head and bit Chi-Yu's ear. The leopard girl's shrewdness was once again displayed. It's very simple. Chasing after a girl is actually a very easy thing. As long as you do as I say, not only me, I'm afraid no girl will be able to resist. Chi-Yu smiled slightly and said, why didn't I know that there was such a killing move? Tell me about it. The corner of Shangbing's mouth revealed a trace of a mischievous smile, and said, First of all, you have to bring me back to your villa on a romantic night, the most luxurious castle-style villa. Chi-Yu giggled and said, Aren't you being too direct? If I were to bring a girl back to the villa when I meet her, I'm afraid she would really think of me as a hooligan. Shangbing unhappily bit him again and said, You're so annoying. Who asked you to think that way? Can't you be a little more pure? You hooligan, you have to do that when you bring me back to the villa. I think your brain is filled with sperm. You're not allowed to interrupt me, do you hear me? Okay, go ahead. Chi-Yu lowered his head slightly and put it between Shangbing's head and shoulder. He sniffed the faint virgin fragrance on her delicate body, and the sad aura on his body gradually disappeared. Among his girlfriends, Ming Ming was lively and cheerful, Wen Ting was gentle and elegant, Ryua was overbearing and full of the aura of a strong person, and Shangbing in front of him was like a hot pepper, always giving him a hot feeling. Born in the Dark Parliament, she did not care as much as ordinary girls. She did as she pleased, and Chi Yu liked her character more and more. Xiangbing said, "When we arrive at the villa, you have to take me to a room with a high-quality sound system and play a beautiful classical piano piece. Then, fill the humidifier with red wine produced in 1982 from the Lafayette Fosy Manor, so that the room is filled with the rich aroma of red wine. Extinguish the lights in the room and light candles, so that the smell of red wine and that faint red color fill the entire room. Then, open a bottle of Louis XIII, Deputy Representative, and taste the taste of dry bar with me, and dance to the wonderful piano." As she spoke, her eyes became a little hazy, as if she had been completely intoxicated in that wonderful atmosphere. Chi Yu thought for a moment and said with a smile, "You girls really know how to enjoy, but it is indeed very romantic. This doesn't seem to be difficult to achieve. The price of the wine should add up to about 100,000. As for the villa, I can rent one. I still have this amount of money, but although it is wasteful, it seems that it is not enough to make any girl fall for it." Xiangbing said impatiently, "You only know how to talk about money. It is not romantic at all. I haven't finished yet. Just now, these are just appetizers." Listening to Xiangbing's fantasy, Chi Yu's mood became much more relaxed. Okay, it's my fault. Go on, I will definitely satisfy you just now." Xiangbing said, "Early the next morning, you have to drive to pick me up. Pay attention to the car, you have to use a special edition Mach 62. Chi Yu stared blankly for a moment before replying, "I know about the Mach 62, and I've even sat in it before. But what do you mean by special edition? This seems a little expensive. A few million." Xiangbing said angrily, "When did you become so stink of money? Don't talk about money anymore. Besides, a few million is not enough to buy a special edition Mach 62. The so-called special edition means that the interior is completely decorated with platinum, gold, and diamonds. It is not very expensive, tens of millions of RMB. You can also customize it according to your requirements. I like the black interior with these decorations, that is cool enough." Tens of millions and you say it is not expensive, Xiangbing. You are too talented. Chi Yu couldn't help but tease her. Xiangbing ignored him and continued, "In the special edition Mach 62, we will go directly to the airport, then take your private Gulfstream V to Athens. After arriving in Athens, we will go to the Aegean Sea, and then take the world's most luxurious yacht, Wugan Blade, to swim in the Aegean Sea. In this case, you barely pass. Hey, Chi Yu, what happened to you?" As she spoke, she suddenly found that Chi Yu's body was becoming more and more stiff. A cold aura was emitted from his body, fluctuating unstably. Gulfstream V private jet, yacht, Athens, Aegean Sea. When these words were connected, it immediately evoked the pain that Chi Yu had buried in his heart not long ago. His pale red eyes gradually turned red, and the energy in his body was violently fluctuating uncontrollably. The huge energy aura filled Xiangbing with fear. A furious roar erupted from Chi Yu's mouth as he abruptly released his grip on Xiangbing. His body soared into the sky as a pair of black and scarlet gold wings appeared on his back. Following the release of an enormous energy aura, he fiercely waved his hand towards the sky. Immediately, a beam of light with a diameter of 1 meter shot into the sky, a mixture of purple, blue, red, and green. The huge energy aura caused the plants on the ground to tremble. The tyrannical aura seemed to sweep through the surrounding area of 1,000 square meters. The window of Xiangbing's police car was completely shattered, and the light beam that Chi Yu shot out suddenly exploded after reaching the horizon. A piece of cloud that had just floated over was crushed by the huge energy. At that moment, even the sunlight seemed to have dimmed a lot. Floating in the air, the 4 wings on Chi Yu's back flapped gently. A punch could not completely vent the pain in his heart, but he gradually calmed down. "What's wrong with me? Didn't I already decide to start all over again? But why am I still in so much pain?" Chi Yu hated it. He hated that he still could not forget that woman, could not forget those days in Athens. But what he could not forget even more was the deep pain that woman brought him. The four temples disappeared, and Chi Yu returned to the ground. His white hair had been dyed reddish gold. Although he did not undergo origin mutation, the energy that he emitted made it difficult for Shangbing to even maintain a standing posture. After all, the four auspicious Kirin who was close to the 7-cloud level was too powerful. Chi Yu, are you crazy? Shangbing looked at him in shock and tears flowed in her eyes. I just told you about my dream. Even if you don't want to agree, you don't have to. Just as she said that, Chi Yu had already rushed in front of her. He hugged her body tightly in his arms and kissed Shangbing's smooth face madly. His gaze looked a little crazy, and his aura was filled with a domineering feeling. I'm sorry, Shangbing, Two warm kisses suddenly blocked Chi Yu's mouth, covering the rest of his words. Shangbing seemed to want to release all the shock that she had just experienced. She kissed Chi Yu back madly. The two of them hugged each other tightly next to the police car. After a long time, when their breathing became restless due to the long period of kissing, this crazy action stopped. After the madness, Shangbing became gentle. Chi Yu, what happened to you? Chi Yu's gaze became a little dull. Greece, Athens. Not long ago, I took the Gulf Stream V to go there. I also swam in the Aegean Sea on her yacht. If not for her, I would not have become like this. Klinsmann would not have died, the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus would not have died, and Wen Ting would not have died either. I was blind. I deserved it because I had eyes but could not see. I could not see her real purpose. I am the dumbest fool in the world. Although Chi Yu's words were very vague, Shangbing had already come to a sudden realization from his words. No wonder his reaction was so intense. It turned out that so many things had happened. Especially when he heard Chi Yu say that he was blind. He finally understood why he had not looked at him. How could a blind person focus his eyes? They hadn't seen each other for 8 months. Although she had been waiting bitterly, the man in front of her had experienced far more pain than she had. His eyes had gone blind and his hair had turned white. It was obvious that it had something to do with what he had just said. No wonder the aura of sadness on his body was so strong. In this situation, he still did not forget him and still took the initiative to find him. This had already proved everything. Holding Chi Yu's big hand, Shangbing said softly, "Don't say anything. Don't say anything. I will go back with you." She did not want the police car, nor did she want her own job. For Chi Yu, Shangbing also gave up everything that she had with great difficulty. In his warm embrace, the two flew directly back to Dragonfield Courtyard. When they landed on the lawn of Dragonfield Courtyard, Yan Xiaoi was taking a walk outside. Seeing that Chi Yu had brought back a woman, he could not help but widen his eyes in surprise. However, at this time there was a feeling of joy in his heart. In some aspects, he and Chi Yu were very similar, and that was towards women. Seeing that Chi Yu had brought back a beauty, Yan Xiaoi could not help but be happy for him, because only this Chi Yu was the original ruffian. This also proved that the blow he had received had gradually been released. Wow, boss, you are too strong. Even a policewoman is fine. The uniform is so tempting. Yan Xiaoi smiled evilly as he walked towards Chi Yu and Shangbing. Chi Yu slightly frowned and said, "Are you ready? We will leave tomorrow." Yan Xiaoi looked at Shangbing and suddenly felt his eyes light up. Although in terms of appearance, Shangbing was slightly inferior to Ryue and Mingming. However, her European-style perfect figure and her invisible hot body, coupled with her police uniform, were all filled with strong temptation. She was definitely a top-quality product. Boss was indeed boss. Although he could no longer see, his ability to choose beauties had not decreased in the slightest. However, what made him somewhat confused was that although Chi Yu had brought back a woman, his aura did not seem to be as relaxed as he had imagined. Not only was his face as cold as before, even the sorrow on his body had not diminished. "Boss, we have already prepared everything. Don't worry, this time no one will slack off." Chi Yu's expression became a little calmer. He pulled Shang Bing past Yan Xiaoi, patted his shoulder and said, "Good brother, from now on we, the Zodiac Guardian Warriors, will not be bullied by anyone." Ming Ming had already woken up from her cultivation. Although her strength had only recovered by 50%, during the 5 days of treatment by Chi Yu, her body had really adjusted. To Chi Yu's surprise, when he brought Shang Bing back, whether it was Ruyue, Ming Ming, or the snow girl who had once confessed to him, none of them had any dissatisfaction. Instead, they happily accepted Shang Bing's existence. Ruyue had seen Shang Bing before. She affectionately pulled Shang Bing away and arranged a room for her in the villa. Although they did not say it, Chi Yu understood that the reason they did this was because they did not want to provoke him in any way. Their affection made him very touched. This was his home. Shang Bing had already been brought back, so it was time to seal his heart. Only the women who had been deeply imprinted in his heart were left. Chi Yu did not say much, but he swore in his heart that from now on, no matter how beautiful a woman was, he would never touch her, and he would never let his women suffer any harm. When the first ray of sunlight shone on the earth, bringing warmth to the world, and the plants began to breathe, 3 luxury buses quietly drove into the Dragon Field courtyard. The Dragon Field courtyard occupied a lot of land. Compared to ordinary villas, its garden area was at least 10 times larger. The total area was comparable to some of the super mansions abroad. Therefore, the entrance of the 3 luxury buses did not make the garden look crowded. The doors opened, and young men and women dressed in green, gold, red, and blue quickly got off the luxury buses. Although they were very fast, their movements were very light. There were a total of 120 young people on the 3 luxury buses, but they did not make the slightest sound. They were dressed according to the color of their clothes. They stood in 4 rows, facing the direction of the villa, and waited quietly. Each of these young people seemed to be in the best condition. Their calm expressions were tinged with excitement. Although they were all different in height and weight, they all had one thing in common, and that was their youth. Even the oldest among them looked to be in his 20s. The ratio of men to women was about 7 to 3. 120 people, 240 gazes focused in the same direction, waiting quietly. The luggage system of the luxury bus sent the young people's luggage out from the track under the bus, and after placing them on the ground, it started again and left the Dragon Field courtyard. Chi Yu sat cross-legged on his bed. After finding Shang Bing, Ruyue had been accompanying her, explaining the situation clearly to her. Chi Yu did not want to waste time, so he put the weapons brought by Hu Guang and Yi An's subordinates into his Kirin orb, and had been cultivating until now. It was not until he felt the aura coming from the garden outside that he woke up from his meditative state and restrained his thundercloud force. The 4 types of thundercloud force in his body circulated in an orderly manner. They first passed through the 12 standard meridians, then passed through the conception and governing vessels to enter the 7 meridians, and finally gathered together in the dantian. Under Chi Yu's deliberate cultivation these days, his 4 types of thundercloud force had always maintained a state of balance. Although he did not feel that the progress was fast, Chi Yu clearly found that cultivating each type of thundercloud force separately was very effective. Moreover, at the end of each cultivation, the 4 types of thundercloud force would maintain a state of balance, making the thundercloud force feel very solid. Because of the balance of thundercloud force, there would only be an effect of mutual enhancement and would never have an effect of mutual suppression. This made it so that when he cultivated, he did not need to expend extra effort to restrain his thundercloud force to avoid qigong deviation. The door opened and Ryue walked in from outside. She happened to see Chi Yu open his lifeless eyes. She walked to Chi Yu's side and squatted down, holding Chi Yu's hand and said, "They're here." Chi Yu nodded and said, Is everyone ready? Ryua nodded and said, Everyone is ready, we're just waiting for you now. I've already asked the servants to gather in the hall, no one will find out. If we go there this time, what will happen to Kirin Group? I'm afraid it won't do without someone in charge. Chiyu thought about it and said, There's no other way now. Improving the overall strength is the most important thing. We can come back a few times in the map and get the fruits back. It's a pity that the Kunlun mirrors can only be controlled by Snow Girl. Otherwise, I can rest assured with her here. How is Shangbing? Can she get used to being with everyone? Ryua looked at him deeply and said, Shangbing's character is a little cold. Maybe it has something to do with her previous experience. However, I think she will get better after spending more time with everyone. Chiyu stood up and at the same time, pulled Ryua up as well. Do you blame me for bringing her back? Ryua smiled and said, If I say no, of course it would be a lie. But now, you are no longer the impulsive little boy you used to be. I know you must have your own reasons for doing this. Don't worry, no matter what you want to do, I will support you. Chiyu held Ryua's hand and kissed it gently on the lip. I made you worry. Alright, we should go out too. Feeling the emotions revealed by Chiyu, Ryua's eyes showed a trace of a knowing smile. She knew that her man had gradually come out of his sadness. Although he could not really return to his previous self, she somewhat liked the current situation. The current him was more like a mature man. The two of them walked out of the room hand in hand and went directly to the hall on the first floor of the villa. All the Zodiac guardian god warriors were waiting there quietly. Each of them had a big box with some of their belongings and clothes. When Vol saw Chiyu coming down, he hurried to greet him. Boss, everyone is ready. Shall we go now? Chiyu nodded and said, Let's go outside first. Snow Girl, Shangbing, come with me. He waved in the direction where he felt the aura of the two women. Snow Girl and Shangbing walked together to Chiyu's side. Snow Girl seemed to have returned to her previous iceberg appearance. Only when she saw Chiyu would the ice on her pretty face melt a little. Dad! Snow Girl called softly. Chiyu said, This time, we will go to the ancient behemoth era together. We will temporarily put aside the matter of Kirin Group. When we have prepared enough fruits, we will send them back. You should also participate in this training. It will be good for your strength. However, I have to remind you in advance that once the training starts, I will treat everyone equally. You have to be mentally prepared. Shangbing looked at Chiyu with some surprise. You are not really going to travel through space, are you? Chiyu smiled bitterly. Just like how you didn't believe that I would detoxify you, I have never lied to you. When you get there, you will naturally understand. The people from the 4 great families are already here. Let's go, everyone, follow me. As he said that, he took the lead and walked out of the villa. The door opened, and the 120 outstanding young people from the 4 great families who were waiting outside subconsciously puffed out their chests. Most of them had a bit of curiosity in their eyes as they waited for the people inside to come out. From their teachers, they had a rough idea of the situation this time, but they didn't know what they were going to do. The first thing they saw was a tall figure in a black shirt and black trousers. In early autumn, such attire seemed a little dull. What surprised them even more was that this tall man had long white hair. The pale color formed a sharp contrast with the black clothes on his body. It was easy to give these young people a strong visual impact. What surprised them even more was that this man did not look very old. He seemed to be about the same age as them, but they did not know where his white hair, which looked like that of an old man, came from. Following closely behind Chiyu, more than 10 people walked out in a line. When they saw the people in front, these young people from the 4 great families couldn't help but be attracted. Ryua's nobility, Snow Girl's coldness, Ming Ming's indifference, and Shangbing's fiery eyes all had a strange attraction to them. Not to mention the boys, even the girls among these young people couldn't help but be surprised when they saw the 4 great beauties. The 4 women had their own characteristics, but all of them were super beauties that were 1 in 10,000. Someone once said that women were the best ornaments for men. At this time, the 4 women walked out from behind Chi Yu at the same time. The 4 beauties with different expressions and temperaments set off Chi Yu's special temperament. It was undoubtedly very eye-catching. Even if Chi Yu wasn't handsome, his temperament was enough to make up for his shortcomings. That invisible feeling of coolness was what the modern girls liked the most. Of course, when these young people saw the different shapes of the Zodiac guardian warriors behind Chi Yu, they couldn't help but be taken aback. At least half of them didn't look like normal people. Vol and Emodan, who had a figure like a globe, Hu Guang, who was wearing a pair of broken shoes, disheveled clothes, and a pair of glasses as thick as the bottom of a bottle, Ian, who was no less wretched than him, Chang Jie, who had a strong aura of Hummer, and Guan Jing. These people didn't look like good people no matter how one looked at them. Chi Yu's walking speed wasn't fast, but those who paid attention could see that every step he took was the same distance, and every step he took made no sound. He only stopped when he was 20 meters away from the 4 families. The 4 beauties and the other Zodiac guardian warriors stopped in a fan shape in front of Chi Yu, holding their luggage in their hands. Stopping, Chi Yu used his spiritual power to distinguish the different families of the 120 people 20 meters in front of him. After all, their energy characteristics were very obvious. "Hello, welcome to the Dragon Field courtyard." Chi Yu had a faint smile on his face. The young people didn't say anything. Looking at this young man who was about the same age as them, although Chi Yu's temperament had surprised them a lot, they still couldn't believe it when they thought about what their masters had said. These people in front of them were actually the strongest forces in the East. In the last battle in Tianxiang Mountain, the 4 families had brought their strongest warriors, who were all above 30 years old. Almost none of these young people had participated in the battle, so they hadn't seen the strength of Chi Yu and the Zodiac guardian warriors. "I'm very happy that the 4 great clans have made such a wise decision. Before coming here, I'm sure that your masters have already introduced us a little. After discussing with them, your clans have agreed that from today onwards, for the next 5 years, you will no longer belong to the 4 great clans, but will be my subordinates. Although you have already come here, I still hope that you will come willingly. After this moment, even if you want to regret it, it will be impossible. If anyone has any questions, you can ask. This is your last chance. If you want to leave, I won't stop you." The young man standing at the front of the Shin family took a step forward and stared straight into Chi Yu's eyes. In a clear voice, he said, "As members of the family, we will naturally follow the orders of the family without any hesitation. Just as you said, the family has already given us a certain description of your side's strength. However, we all want to know who we will be serving in the next 5 years. This is my first question. At the same time, I also want to know what we will be doing in the next 5 years." Chi Yu's spiritual power enveloped the young man who had walked out. He found that this young man was definitely one of the best out of the 120 people. Not only did his energy have a very strong foundation, but it also had very little impurities. Although he didn't know what his ability was, Chi Yu could feel that this young man had a lot of potential. From his tone, which was neither servile nor overbearing, he could also hear that this young man's character seemed to be good. Chi Yu smiled slightly and said, "These 2 questions of yours are not difficult to answer. First, I can tell you very frankly that among the leaders of the 4 families, at least half of them are hostile to us. However, they don't dare to easily become enemies with us. In this situation, they still chose to send you here. Naturally, it is because there is a profit to be made. From now on, the people standing in front of you, including me, should be the dozen or so people standing in front of you. Father, the leaders of the family should have told you that our organization is called the Zodiac Guardian God." The young man said slightly angrily, "Sir, it seems that your description of our family is a bit too extreme. Our 4 families have a long history. I hope that you can give us enough respect." The corner of Chi Yu's mouth slightly curled up, revealing a strange look. Respect? I can only tell you that those who respect others will be respected. As for why I said that, you can ask about it when you return to your families in the future. Perhaps the leaders of your clans didn't tell you what benefits the 4 big clans could get by sending you here to listen to my command. I can tell you frankly that the benefits the 4 big clans will get are power, real power. I can also answer the second question you asked just now. It's very simple. From the moment you began to follow my orders, in the next 5 years, your mission is to defend the dignity of the East in all aspects, to protect everything in the Yanhuang Republic. TSK, this kind of high-profile talk again. Do you have anything else to say? Even if you are perfunctory, you don't have to say it like this. In the Su family's team, a young man standing at the back tilted his head and said with some disdain. He had dyed red hair and a medium build. He looked at Chi Yu with obvious contempt. Chi Yu, do you think I am perfunctory? Chapter 216. There were a total of 120 youths from the 4 major families. Although the others did not speak, the way they looked at Chi Yu and the rest clearly showed that although they were here on orders from their families, they did not think much of Chi Yu and the rest. The 4 major families had deep roots in Yanhuang, and these youths were the cream of the crop of the younger generation in their families. Who wouldn't have some pride? Especially when they saw how young Chi Yu was, the arrogance in their hearts unknowingly surged even more. Chi Yu was silent for 5 seconds before speaking again. I've already answered your questions. Whether you believe me or not is up to you. I know that you guys are a little dissatisfied with my commands. However, what I can tell you is that from today onwards, as long as you can persevere, your strength will at least double. Listen carefully, I said at least. The red-haired youth was clearly a troublemaker in the Su family. He swayed his shoulders and walked to the front of the Su family team. You think we can improve just because you say so? Are you going to give us stimulants? Su Dong snorted coldly. Su Jing, no one will think you're a mute if you speak less. Su Jing snorted and said, It was this brother of yours who asked us to ask questions. Can't he let me speak my mind? Then what's the point of putting on an act? Chi Yu smiled slightly and stopped Su Dong from continuing. He turned to Su Jing and said, We are all protectors of the East, so there is no point in saying more. Let strength prove everything. From the looks of it, you should be quite a character among the younger generation of the Su family. If we don't take it back, how do you compare to Su Dong? Su Jing looked at Chi Yu and said proudly, I dare not say anything else, but in terms of overall strength, I can at least be in the top 100 of those under 30 in the Su family. I haven't seen my cousin Su Dong for a long time, but I estimate that he can at most last 10 minutes against me. This time, Su Dong did not stop him. Instead, he smiled and said to Chi Yu, This kid doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Let me teach him a lesson. If he doesn't see the outside world, he will forever be a frog at the bottom of a well. Chi Yu patted Su Dong's shoulder and said, He said you can't last 10 minutes against him. What about you? Is 1 minute enough? The smile on Su Dong's face became a little strange. He had always disliked this cousin of his. Just now, in front of so many people, he had actually said that he wouldn't be able to last more than 10 minutes in his hands. No need. I think 30 bars at most will be enough. Chi Yu nodded and said, Then 30 seconds. With that, he turned around and walked towards the 4 girls. Su Dong took a step forward. The youths from the 4 clans only saw their eyes light up. He was already in front of Su Jing. He raised 3 fingers and said, 30 seconds. If I can't beat you in 30 seconds, then I will write my name backwards in the future. Let's begin. Su Jing was furious. He flung his red hair and said, Don't you need to pay taxes for bragging? Be careful. With a muffled bang, a huge flame instantly ignited on his body. It was no wonder he was so arrogant. His own strength was indeed the foundation of his arrogance. In an instant, the golden-red flame had completely enveloped his body. The temperature of the entire dragon field courtyard suddenly rose. The youths from the 4 clans behind him subconsciously retreated, giving him space to display his skills. Su Dong stood there without moving. He looked at the burning flame on Su Jing's body and shook his head. He said, "You still like to show off. You have a lot of energy, but you have also wasted a lot. You still have 20 seconds. Su Jing, who was in the flame, heard Su Dong's teasing. He couldn't help but shout angrily, "Are you training your mouth? Take this." His hands suddenly closed in front of his body and then pushed forward at the same time. The flame around his body suddenly spread, bringing with it a scorching airflow and twisting air. It formed a wall of flame with a diameter of more than 3 meters, directly rushing towards Su Dong. Su Dong was still standing there. His right hand had been raised at some point in time. Just as the flames were about to reach him, a milky white brilliance suddenly lit up and condensed on the surface of his palm. Compared to the enormous energy aura that Su Jing was releasing, the brilliance on his hand was almost negligible. The wall of flame arrived in front of Su Dong, but it stopped right before he raised his hand. No matter how Su Dong pushed, the wall of flame could not advance any further. With Su Dong's hand as the center, the wall of flame had already begun to cave in. Su Dong smiled slightly and said, "Looks like I won't need 30 seconds. Let's end this." A milky white light suddenly rushed out from his palm. The youths from the 4 clans only felt the scorching temperature suddenly drop. In the next moment, Su Dong was already standing in front of Su Jing. His raised right hand had already grabbed Su Jing's neck, lifting his body directly off the ground. Su Jing struggled in fear, but he could not use any of his strength. Among the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors, Qi Yu was undoubtedly the strongest, followed by Ryue, and then Su Dong, Ming Ming, and the rest. Before Qi Yu appeared, Su Ku was Ryue's. With his strength at the 6 clouds level, not to mention Su Jing, even the head of the Su family would not be a match for him. The huge difference in strength made the battle extremely simple. Su Jing did not stand a chance at all. Su Dong's hand loosened, and Su Jing's body naturally slid down. His feet were unsteady, and he took a few steps back before he could regain his balance. He looked at Su Dong with eyes filled with shock. Ever since he was young, his impression of Su Dong had always been that of an ignorant and incompetent good-for-nothing playboy. It was only because his elders had a higher status in the Su family that he was valued more. He had never imagined that Su Dong's true strength would be so strong that he had no chance of resisting him at all. Su Dong floated up, and with a leap, he returned to Qi Yu's side. He smiled and said, "Fortunately, I did not disappoint you. In less than 30 seconds. Qi Yu nodded his head and said to the 120 youths, "All of you should have already seen that in the face of absolute power, there is no way to play any tricks. Although not everyone among the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors is as strong as Su Dong, their combined strength is definitely more than the combined strength of 12 Su Dongs, even under such circumstances. Even under such circumstances, we may not be able to take the initiative in the future crisis. Therefore, this time after discussing with the 4 major families, we let you come here and join our camp. I am not exaggerating. In the near future we, the Guardians of the East, will have to face challenges from all sides. Therefore, as long as we have stronger strength, we can better protect the East, and protect our motherland. I know that in your respective families, you are the cream of the crop of the younger generation. But this is far from enough. I'm not afraid that you won't like to hear it, but the 4 major families are enough to affect the situation of Yan Huang in the world. Therefore, you have to improve your own strength, and also improve the strength of your 4 major families." Su Dong had defeated Su Jing in one move, and this had completely shocked all the youths present. Among these 120 people, there were definitely no more than 10 who could defeat Su Jing. And if they really fought, it would not be a quick victory. The confidence in their hearts had begun to waver in the face of Su Dong's simple palm, and the expressions on their faces changed. I'll give you all one more chance. You can choose the 10 strongest among you and have a match with me. You can use your strongest skills. From the outside, the human body can be divided into 6 parts, namely the head, the torso, and the 4 limbs. You can choose any one of the 6 parts. As long as you can hold on for 5 minutes without being struck by me, you win. From now on, the Zodiac guardian god would obey the orders of the 4 great families. If you lose, then for the next 5 years, I will be your boss. For the next 5 years, you will have nothing to do with the 4 great clans. At that time, if anyone disobeyed my orders, there would only be one result. Although Chi Yu did not say what the result was, these young people naturally understood what he meant from his cold tone. As he spoke, Chi Yu walked out. Each of the 4 great families sent a young man to gather together for a discussion. In fact, Su Dong's strength had fully proved that the Zodiac Guardian warriors were not just for show. However, the conditions proposed by Chi Yu were too tempting. Moreover, they also wanted to try again to see how big the gap between them and the Zodiac Guardian warriors was. Therefore, after a simple discussion, 10 of them walked out of the team. Among them, the Shen family and the Yu family sent 2 people each, while the Luo family and the Zhou family sent 3 people each. The 10 young people, 8 men and 2 women, slowly walked forward and surrounded Chi Yu. The young man from the Shen family who raised the question said, "We have thought about it. We will choose your head. You said to knock us down in 5 minutes. Please remember that." After saying this, he lowered his head in shame. Of course, he knew that it was a very cheap trick. He also could not think of how a person could launch an attack with his head. Chi Yu said indifferently, "Okay, I will not use any skills, and the other 5 parts of my body will not move. Okay, you can start. 5 minutes. The young man from the Shin family winked at the others around him. Obviously, they had discussed it. 5 minutes was not long, but it was not short either. Before they came up, they had already thought of a countermeasure. After Chi Yu said, "Start," the 2 people sent by the Su family ran away as fast as they could. Although they did not have the ability to fly, their jumping ability was very amazing. In almost a few flashes, they were already 100 meters away from Chi Yu. As for the other 8 people, they each displayed the strength of their families. 3 attacks of different attributes simultaneously blocked every angle of Chi Yu's body. In their opinion, even if Chi Yu still had the ability to attack, it was impossible for him to use his head to defeat them and catch up with the 2 people from the Su family in 5 minutes. 5 minutes would soon pass. Chi Yu had said that the other 5 parts of his body would not move, so it was impossible for him to catch up with the 2 people who had escaped. Although it seemed like a little shameless, the rules were set by Chi Yu, so from the beginning, they felt that the balance of victory had tilted in their favor. Chi Yu did not even look at the 8 people who were attacking him. Of course, he did not see them at all. Just when the 8 people around him attacked at the same time, he moved. It was not his body, limbs, or head that moved, but his long white hair. Chi Yu's hair was just above his shoulders. It was only 10 inches long, but it was this 10 inches of hair that easily decided the outcome of the battle. 10 strands of white hair floated out at the same time as the young men from the 4 major families attacked. The soft hair instantly became 100 times sharper than a steel needle. Chi Yu did not use his ability, but the thundercloud force made the steel needle much harder than the hardest metal. 10 white lights flashed, and the 8 young men who were attacking in front of him felt their bodies go numb at the same time. The energy that they had just gathered and the attack that they had just launched stopped immediately. Meanwhile, the other 2 strands of hair disappeared in the air like lightning. The 2 fleeing Su family disciples were frozen in place almost instantly. Chi Yu did not reveal any expression on his face. He sighed softly and said, "I've said it before. In the face of absolute power, the weaker party has no chance. Sometimes, even a little bit of difference can easily decide the outcome of the battle. Now you should understand. As he spoke, the 10 young men fell to the ground at the same time. The entire process of the battle was actually over in just a few seconds. Chi Yu did not even move, let alone exert force in his torso and limbs. Just 10 strands of hair, the weakest and weakest part of the human body, had easily ended the battle. The 10 strands of hair disappeared quietly as if they had never existed. Chi Yu said, "Are you convinced now?" The 10 people slowly got up from the ground. The way they looked at Chi Yu had completely changed. All the contempt in the hearts of the young men from the 4 major families had long disappeared. The feeling that Chi Yu gave them was absolutely unfathomable. It was a powerful ability that they had never seen before. Chi Yu's strength had long exceeded their understanding. Return to your positions and stand according to the formation of your respective families. Chi Yu issued his first order to the young men from the 4 major families. Everyone returned to their positions, just like before Chi Yu and the rest came out of the villa. They stood straight, like soldiers waiting for their chief to inspect them. Sensing the completely restrained aura and the young men's slightly frightened expressions, Chi Yu nodded in satisfaction and said, "Let's get to know each other again. You probably don't know who I am yet. Let me introduce myself. My surname is Chi Yu. As the name suggests, I'm the guardian of the 6th Zodiac. Naturally, I'm named after the guardian of the Zodiac. In China there are 20 Zodiac animals, but I'm an exception. My stake is not any of the 12 Zodiac animals, but Kiran. Kiran is the king of the beasts and also the king of the ancient divine beasts. Kiran's bloodline swirls in my body. Therefore, I'm also the king of the Zodiac animals. According to the order of the 12 Zodiac animals, the first one is Rat, Sun Mouse, and Vole. Come out." Vole walked to Chi Yu's side. After all, he was still young, so he was obviously a little shy to see so many people staring at him. He smiled and said, "Hello everyone, I'm Rat of the 12 Zodiac animals. You can call me Vole." Chi Yu said to the other Zodiac warriors, "Introduce yourselves." Emo Dan came to Vole's side and deliberately got close to him. She said arrogantly, "I'm Ox of the 12 Zodiac animals. People call me Emo Dan of the indifferent green robe." Su Dong giggled and said, "Everyone can just call her Cow. I'm Tiger of the 12 Zodiac animals. I'm from the Su family. My name is Su Dong." When Emo Dan heard Su Dong call her Cow, she couldn't help but get angry. "Yes, you're Tiger, perverted Tiger. I heard that when Tiger does that kind of thing, he does it dozens of times a day. But each time, it doesn't take more than 30 seconds. I guess you're the same." Su Dong was about to lose his temper, but he was stopped by Modi, who walked out. Modi glared at Emo Dan and said, "That's enough." Emo Dandan still had some misgivings about her sister. She angrily glared at Su Dong, snorted, and turned her head away. Modi said briefly, "I'm Modi of the Rabbit Zodiac animals." Ryua walked to Chi Su's side. Her self-introduction was even shorter than Modi's. She said, "I'm Hai Ryua of the Dragon Zodiac animals." Hearing the people in front of him, Hu Guang couldn't hold back. When he heard Ryua's introduction, he quickly ran out. His big slippers made uncoordinated sounds. "Little brothers and sisters, my name is Hu Guang. I'm wise and handsome. People call me Little Panan. I'm a snake warrior of the Zodiac animals. Of course, my other snake is also very powerful." As he spoke, his obscene eyes had already glanced at the young women of the 4 big families. If it wasn't for the shock that Chi Yu and Su Dong brought to these young people, they would have vomited because of Hu Guang's self-introduction. If Panan heard Hu Guang's words, he would probably jump out of his coffin. Changjia said loudly, "I'm Changjia, a horse warrior of the Zodiac animals. You can call me Hummer." It was Yen Xiaoi's turn. He looked at Hu Guang with disdain and walked out with his chest puffed out. He maintained his handsome image. "I'm Yen Xiaoi, a sheep warrior of the Zodiac animals. You can call me Xiaoyi. I'm best at treating all kinds of injuries, especially gynecological diseases. Actually, I used to be a gynecologist. Beautiful sisters, if you have any physical or psychological problems, feel free to look for me. Ian said disdainfully, You're impotent. What else do you want? I'm Ian, a monkey warrior of the Zodiac animals. Hello everyone. Seeing Chi Yu's unfriendly expression, Ian and Yan Xiaoyi restrained themselves a little. After introducing themselves, they didn't say anything else. Ming Ming said calmly, I'm Ming Ming, a chicken warrior of the Zodiac animals. Her strength and mood had not fully recovered. After the trip to Greece, Chi Yu had suffered such a huge blow. She didn't feel good either, so she was a little depressed. Guan Ping, a dog warrior of the Zodiac animals. Guan Jing was the last to introduce. Guan Jing, a pig warrior of the Zodiac animals. His small eyes were the same as those of Hu Guang and Yan Xiaoyi. They didn't stay idle. Because of his special job in the past, others only looked at beauties, but he looked at both men and women. His small eyes were looking around, and no one knew what he was thinking. Just as Guan Jing finished introducing herself, the sound of a car engine could be heard from outside. Jida was driving his own car, rushing in from outside. With an ear-piercing screech, his precious car stopped at the entrance. Before the car even came to a complete stop, his tall body had already jumped out of the car. When he saw that everyone was in the garden, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Thank goodness, I'm not late. Master, I've already decided to participate in this training with you. Chi Yu nodded at Jida and said, All right, we're done with the introductions. From now on, the people of the 4 major families, no matter what your original names were, will be given a serial number. For example, the Shin family will be called Shin Yi, Shin Air, etc. The other families will be the same. When the 5 years are up, you will revert to your original names. Each of the 12 Zodiac Guardian Warriors will lead 10 of you as temporary captains. There will be a total of 12 teams. Jida, Snowgirl, Shangbing, you will be in my team. Everyone will listen to my commands and train together. There's one thing I need to make clear. No matter what happens in this training, everyone must keep it a secret. Even when you return to your respective families, you must not reveal a single word. Understood? Although the youths of the 4 major families didn't necessarily submit to Chi Yu, they were at least shocked by Chi Yu's strength. They agreed in unison. Hearing Chi Yu say that each Zodiac Guardian Warrior would lead a team, those who had designs on the girls of the 4 major families immediately became excited. However, their excitement was quickly dampened by Chi Yu. The girls of the 4 major families will be divided into Ryue, Modi, and Mingyue. The rest of you can choose to form a team and choose who you want to follow. Now, each of you will form a team. After that, we will officially start the training. Boss, it can't be. I'm serious. When men and women work together, it's not tiring. How about? Yan Xiaoyi was the first to say unhappily. Chi Yu said coldly, How about what? This is the training. If you have the idea of having sex, I think it's better for you to restrain yourself. The few of you who are weak will be the main targets for training. Good luck to you. If you have extra energy to do other things, as long as you are willing, I won't stop you. The teams began. The few guys who had introduced themselves previously suddenly became unpopular. In the end, after mediation, they reluctantly formed a team. The only one who was satisfied with the team was probably Guan Jing. Because of the excellent bloodline of the 4 major families, most of the males were more handsome, so Chi Yu asked everyone to stand in a circle. He and Snowgirl stood in the center, while the 12 Zodiac Guardian Warriors, Shangbing, and Jida stood around him. Snowgirl looked at Chi Yu and said, Father, can we start? Chi Yu nodded and said, Get ready. Everyone, listen to my commands. The 6 Zodiac animals, the dragon, the tiger, the rabbit, the snake, the monkey, and the dog, will assist me. Inject their energy into my body and activate simultaneously. Begin. Chi-Yu had already decided on the location of the training. Naturally, it would be during the ancient beast era. The environment there was far from comparable to the modern world. Moreover, there were powerful ancient beasts and fierce Jili people. It was the most suitable place for training. Only there could his source of nature recover at the fastest speed and be more effective. With the Kunlun mirrors as the center, it could protrude time and space. Last time, when they came back, it was the Xianyuan sword that helped the Kunlun mirrors break through time and space. Now, the Xianyuan sword was still in a deep sleep. It was obvious that the Xianyuan sword could no longer be used, and it did not have Wenting's help. Therefore, the energy needed to break through time and space had become even greater. Even though Chi-Yu was very confident in his own strength, he could not rely on his own strength to help Snow Girl complete the task of breaking through time and space. Therefore, he needed the help of the 6 Zodiac Guardian warriors to have at least a 70% chance of success. Originally, he wanted to call Ming Ming, but Ming Ming had just recovered from her serious injuries and her energy had not fully recovered. Chi-Yu felt sorry for her, so he excluded her. The 120 youths from the 4 big clans and Jida did not know what Chi-Yu was planning to do. Even Xiangbing could only guess a little. What they did not know was that the upcoming journey would be the most amazing journey of their lives. The dragon, the tiger, the rabbit, the snake, the monkey, and the dog could be said to be the most powerful Zodiac Guardian warriors besides Chi-Yu. After Chi-Yu gave the order to start, they simultaneously activated their own thundercloud force. They raised their hands and pressed in the air, about a foot away from Chi-Yu's body. Different colored lights lit up at the same time, and 12 dazzling light beams were injected into Chi-Yu's body at the same time. Chi-Yu's body shook, and his white hair moved without any wind. 12 huge waves of energy rushed into his body in an instant. Even with his strength, he felt that he could not control it, especially the energy that Ruyue had injected into his body. It was incomparably thick, and the dragon thundercloud force also contained a bit of domineering energy. Even when compared to Wenting, it was not much inferior. These huge waves of energy were quickly transformed by Chi-Yu's natural source and fused with his own thundercloud force. Fortunately, Chi-Yu had the energy of natural source. Otherwise, with his strength, it would be difficult for him to control so much energy. Even if they were of the same origin, the energy aura of the 6 Zodiac Guardian warriors was somewhat different. In the entire Dragon Field courtyard, all the plants withered at the same time. In order to adjust the aura of natural source, Chi-Yu had no choice but to absorb their energy. Of course, as natural source, it also left them with life aura. After a period of time, these plants would be able to recover on their own. Chi-Yu barely controlled his body and nodded to Snow Girl. Target Kunlun Mountain Range, begin. The Snow Lady took a deep breath and slowly closed her icy blue eyes. 2 rays of jade-green light shone from her towering chest and condensed into a circular jade-green projection in the center of her chest. Seeing that dark green light, Chi-Yu couldn't help but be slightly stunned. This was because he suddenly remembered that when the immortal in the mirror controlled the Kunlun mirrors to transform, it was the shape of Snow Girl's bra. He couldn't help but have a strange feeling in his heart. Snow Girl's gaze became abnormally gentle, and the light gradually became clear. A round bronze mirror appeared, and on the smooth surface of the bronze mirror, complex lines continuously seeped out. On the back of the mirror, the dark green light had already become more and more powerful. Dark green symbols rushed out from the back of the bronze mirror, and a dense dark green aura began to spread in all directions, causing Chi-Yu and Snow Girl's bodies to gradually become indistinct. Chi-Yu gave a low shout. His right hand had already imprinted the dark green light in the center of Snow Girl's breasts. After the transformation, an enormous amount of energy rushed towards the Kunlun mirrors like a wave. Snow Girl's delicate body trembled violently, and she suddenly raised her head. Her ice-blue long hair fluttered behind her in a fan shape, quickly turning dark green from the roots. Between her eyebrows, a dark green light continuously expanded. With the help of Chi Yu's energy, the Kunlun mirrors began to activate. However, at this moment, if it weren't for the dark green light and the Kunlun mirrors, it would look like Chi Yu was caressing Snow Girl,